Before we begin, let's slow everything down. You're not here to learn dates, or memorize rules, or keep track of every name. This channel exists for quiet watching, for long stories told gently, from a distance where nothing is urgent. We walk through strange worlds and broken timelines the way Prismo watches them from the center of time. Calmly, patiently, letting moments unfold without rushing them. If you're still awake, and you want more journeys like this waiting for you later, you can quietly subscribe or leave a like, a small signal to keep these timelines playing. And if you're already drifting, that's perfect. Let's begin. The universe ends quietly. No trumpets, no screaming, just a long, slow exhale of reality as the dark between galaxies grows heavier and heavier until it feels like velvet pressed against your eyelids. Stars hang in that dark like tired candles at the end of a wake, their light still traveling, their fuel already gone. Whole galaxies drift apart on rails of invisible gravity, but the motion feels sluggish now, like time itself is wading through deep water. At the edge of all of this, something stands very, very still. He does not roar. He does not gloat. The skeleton here is not the cackling villain of a Saturday morning cartoon. He is a silence shaped like a person, bones like old stone, worn smooth by eons of cosmic wind. Green fire lives in the hollows of his skull, but it burns low, like an emergency exit sign in a theater, long after everyone has gone home. If you were close enough, you would not hear him. You would feel him. A cold pressure in the air, the way your ears pop on an airplane when the cabin forgets what normal feels like. Here is the thing. His wish is not for power, not for a throne, not for conquest. His last desire is smaller and stranger than that. Absolute nothingness. Not just death, but the erasure of the idea that anything could ever have been alive in the first place. Think about that for a second. To want a universe so empty that even memory has nowhere to sit down. Around him, the cosmos tries to keep going out of habit. Nebulae still bloom, but their colors look washed out, like a painting left in the sun for too many centuries. Comets trace slow, arthritic arcs. Time thins. You can almost see through it, threads of cause and effect fraying like an old sweater. His anti-life magic seeps outward in patient waves, and where it passes, timelines don't scream. They just stop returning your calls. The stars notice. They flicker, not from fear, but from exhaustion, as if they have been on-duty nightlights for children who finally fell asleep. Galaxies curl inward, hugging themselves like people on a long, cold bench. Even the multiverse feels narrower, all its branching possibilities wilting back toward a single bare trunk. And somewhere far away from this brink, in some cramped little corner of existence, there are still hands trying to hold everything together. There is always a sword being lifted, a stretchy arm reaching, a wish being weighed in a room at the center of time. We're going to meet them soon. We're going to see how many different ways a universe can say, "Please not yet," while this quiet skull keeps answering, "It's already over." Let's start here though, at the end, at the Lich's last wish, hanging unspoken in the dark like frost on the breath of creation. In this video, as you drift off, we're going to unwind his whole history backwards, from this soft apocalypse, to the Mushroom War, to every timeline that tried to quarantine him. By the time you fall asleep, you'll know how he became the end of everything, and why, in that specifically Adventure Time way, he never quite manages to finish the job. What we're unraveling tonight, the Lich, softly explained. So here is the thing. If the Lich is the last breath of the universe, then tonight we're going to inhale him very slowly, one quiet moment at a time. Not to glorify him, not to make him louder, but to trace his entire existence in a way that lets your brain finally file him away and rest. In this video, we're going to walk through the complete lore of the Lich, his origin in the glowing fallout of the Mushroom War, his first emergence in Ooo like a bad memory leaking through the floorboards of reality, his masquerade inside Billy's heroic legend, the farm world version born from a single catastrophic wish, his eerie connection to the Ice Crown, and all the strange, almost peaceful ways he keeps surviving after every defeat. We're not leaving any incarnation on the cutting room floor. If there's a timeline where he grins, we're going to visit it. But let's start by drawing a soft boundary around what this is not. This is not just a plot recap. This is not a speedrun of every episode with the green skeleton in it. This is a slow excavation of his core. Why he wants silence instead of power. Why his magic feels like entropy given a skull, and what it means that heroes keep encountering him again and again, across the multiverse, like a recurring dream your mind is trying to finish. Think about that for a second. A villain whose real desire is not domination, but an ending. We'll move through the big landmarks. The Mushroom War as his radioactive cradle, his first imprisonment under the Candy Kingdom, trapped in amber like a paused apocalypse, Billy's victory that quietly turns into possession, the farm world Lich, unsealed by a wish in Prismo's time room at the center of time, the way the crown keeps looping him back into existence like a corrupted save file. Each of these isn't just an event on a timeline, it's a different angle on what the end of all life looks like in that specifically Adventure Time way. And because this is a fall asleep explanation, the pacing is going to be gentle, even when the content isn't. We'll let the dramatic moments flare up. Nuclear light, green fire, the Lich's voice scraping across existence, and then we'll settle back into calm, like waves that remember they're part of an ocean. You can drift in and out. If you doze off while he's destroying a universe, that's fine. He'll still be ending reality very politely in the background. Threaded through all of this are the cosmic beings who keep trying to edit him. Prismo and his wishes, the cosmic owl and his prophetic dreams, the quiet bureaucracy of rules that govern the time room. To understand the Lich, you have to understand the entities who keep rewriting his fate, who push him into farm world, who freeze him, who dilute him, who accidentally give him new chances to end everything. He is annihilation with a personality. They are the universe's nervous system, twitching to contain him. By the time we're done, you'll have a map of every major incarnation, every defeat, and the philosophy humming underneath his existence. And then, slowly, we'll follow that map back to where he was born. Your map through the darkness, a soft roadmap of the Lich's lifetimes. So let's start by actually laying out the path we're going to walk, so your brain doesn't have to keep track of the whole multiverse in the dark. Think of this as a soft, glowing map through the Lich's lifetimes, so you can just listen and let the timelines drift past you. First, we go back, before Ooo, before candy people, before magic mushrooms that are also bombs. We return to the pre-war human world and the Mushroom War, to the moment when human violence and strange green anti-life power fuse into a single presence. Here is the thing. The Lich is not born screaming. He is distilled. He is the residue of a world that pushed its own extinction button. We'll start there, at the edge of nuclear fire and broken reality, and watch how that decision echoes forward through time. From there, we sink downward, literally. We'll move to the Lich beneath the Candy Kingdom, trapped in amber under the earth like a paused apocalypse. His bones don't move. His eyes don't blink. But his desire does. That underground amber prison will be our first waypoint, a reminder that in this universe you can't always kill annihilation. You can only refrigerate it and hope it doesn't defrost. Then we'll rise back up into the light, but it won't be comforting. Because the next stop is the Billy deception. The moment the Lich wears Billy's face, wears his voice, wears his legend, we're going to follow how a hero's greatest victory is quietly rewritten into a long con, and how Finn and Jake, and you watching, are invited to question what defeat even means when your enemy can inhabit your ideals. Think about that for a second. The embodiment of death, politely asking for your help while smiling with your favorite hero's teeth. After that, we'll step sideways, out of that timeline, and into Prismo's time room at the center of time. Another waypoint. The couch, the screens, the wish that births Farmworld. We'll trace how one desperate wish, meant to erase the Lich, instead shunts him into a new reality, proving that even when you dodge him in one universe, he reappears in the corner of another. Farmworld. The crown, the frozen hand reaching out of a ruined world. All of that will unfold slowly, like a nightmare being explained to you over tea. And then, the echoes. The later transformations that soften his threat. The baby, the sapling, the strange diminished remnants where annihilation is still there, but translated into something almost manageable. Not gone, just reinterpreted. We're going to move from cosmic to intimate and back again. From world-ending magic to small, quiet character moments, to how people live, date, joke, and make sandwiches in the shadow of the Lich. Each timeline, each wish, each defeat will circle back and gently weave them into a single, understandable pattern. By the end, you might not see the Lich as a simple monster at all, but as a cosmic symptom of war, of fear, of the universe's own tiredness with existence. And maybe, just maybe, that makes him easier to fall asleep to. Get cozy in the apocalypse, settling in before the deep dive, so before we follow this cosmic symptom through every ruined timeline, you should get comfortable in your own. Dim the lights if you can. Let your room fall into that soft end-of-the-day twilight, where the universe feels a little smaller and your bed feels a little more like the center of time. Lie back. Let your shoulders unclench. Maybe you're under a blanket that has absolutely zero chance of stopping the Lich, but does a pretty good job of stopping a draft. Think about that for a second. In a universe full of extinction wishes and anti-life magic, the thing that matters most to you right now might just be the angle of your pillow. Here is the thing. This is a bedtime story about the end of the world. You do not need to stay awake for all of it. You can let this play while your eyes close. And we're going to keep walking through the multiverse, even if you've already drifted past consciousness and into whatever dream reality your brain is quietly generating tonight. And if you like having these enormous, terrifying characters explained softly, like someone reading you a horror philosophy textbook, as a lullaby, you can tap like, or subscribe, or save this to fall asleep to again later. It helps the channel. It helps other tired people find it in the algorithmic wasteland, and it quietly tells the universe, yes, I would like more gentle explanations of apocalyptic desire, please. If you have a little energy left, you can even leave a comment which Lich moment unsettled you the most, the calm way he wishes for the extinction of all life, or that empty green skull just staring through reality. And, on the other side, which hero made you feel safest? Finn with his stubborn human refusal, or someone weirder, like Prismo on his couch, trying to keep the timelines from falling apart? If you're too sleepy to type, that's fine. Your unwritten comment can exist in a parallel timeline where you did hit send. Let's start easing back toward the analysis. Because even in a story about the universe's own tiredness with existence, there are couches and snacks and cosmic beings watching movies together. In this video, we've already touched Prismo's time room, that 80s hangout at the center of time, with infinite screens and a pickle jar, doubling as a prison and a living room. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the multiverse keeps framing annihilation next to a coffee table. That contrast is where we're going to live for the rest of this episode. We'll move from huge abstract stakes, the Lich as entropy, as the wish for silence, down to tiny intimate details, a hand on a sword hilt, a hero's breath, a crack in the amber under the Candy Kingdom, big cosmic swings, then small human heartbeats, over and over. Until that rhythm, that alternating pressure between terror and tenderness, becomes a kind of lullaby. So settle in. The extinction event can wait. Your next timeline is sleep, and the Lich will still be there when you wake up in the morning and hit play again. The Lich is a whisper, not a scream, framing the ultimate villain, and that's the strange comfort, right? The apocalypse can be paused, it can be bottled, or buried, or turned into background radiation under the Candy Kingdom, because the Lich, for all his cosmic menace, is not a storm of noise. He is a quiet pressure, a whisper that never stops. Let's start by contrasting him with the loud villains you're used to. Ice King monologues, shouts, flails his way through loneliness. Hunson Abadir gloats, negotiates, treats evil like a customer service job. Even tiny tyrants like Lemongrab vibrate with outrage. The Lich does none of that. He rarely raises his voice. He doesn't bargain. He doesn't rant. He just states an outcome, like gravity reciting its job description, and reality obediently begins to tilt toward it. Here is the thing. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the Lich is less a guy and more a law. His magic doesn't simply kill you, it unthreads you. When he touches a flower, it doesn't wither dramatically. It just crumbles into this dry, grey absence, as if the universe quietly edited it out of the frame. His wish for the extinction of all life is not a tantrum, it's a return to equilibrium. A cold, empty, mathematically tidy universe where nothing moves enough to hurt anymore. Think about that for a second. Most villains want power, or control, or at least an audience. The Lich wants none of those. He wants silence. No desire, no struggle, no more timelines blooming off the center of time like messy branching coral. Just one final flat line on the heart monitor of existence. He is entropy wearing a skull, the part of the universe that is tired of changing and decides the only stable configuration is zero. And that is why Finn, Jake, and Bubblegum feel so loud next to him. Finn screams, cries, throws himself at reality with this reckless, breakable optimism. Jake naps and jokes and stretches through time like a living refusal to take the rules too seriously. Bubblegum builds, rebuilds, overbuilds, trying to engineer a safe future out of volatile candy and bad decisions. They are noise. They are color. They are the multiverse's refusal to sit still and be reasonable. Their whole emotional arc is defined against that stillness. Every time Finn swings a sword at the Lich, he's not just fighting a skeleton. He's arguing with the universe about whether existence is worth the pain. Every time Bubblegum studies his remains, or that amber prison beneath her kingdom, she's negotiating with entropy itself. How long can we keep the lights on? And yet, the Lich is not invincible. He can be trapped in amber, redirected into a baby body, shunted into farm world by a misphrased wish, transformed into this pathetic, shivering figure by the crown's power and a boy's desperate desire to fix everything. Even entropy, it turns out, has to follow the rules. It can be delayed by love, by mistakes, by the exact wording of a wish made in a cozy room at the center of time. We're going to trace those delays next, every timeline where the universe almost gives in to his whisper, and then, at the last quiet second, chooses to keep talking instead. Between life and anti-life, the Lich's place in Oo's cosmic balance. So when the universe almost gives in to his whisper, and then, at the last quiet second, keeps talking instead, what exactly is it pushing back against? Here is the thing. The Lich doesn't just want you dead. He wants the very sentence of existence to stop mid-word and never pick up again. He sits between life and anti-life, between motion and stillness, between the noisy, candy-colored chaos of Ooh and the perfectly silent vacuum he keeps trying to manifest. Life is messy, loud, full of wrong wishes and bad decisions, and people turning into vampires by accident. The Lich is the opposite of a mess. He is a clean, flat line on a cosmic heart monitor, stretched out across the multiverse. Let's start with where he fits among the other big forces. Prismo, at the center of time, is all about possibility. Every wish, every branching timeline, every bizarre universe where Jake is a brick or Finn is a cat. The cosmic owl is about inevitability, prophetic dreams, fixed moments that echo through reality whether you want them or not. Death is about closure, an ending that feeds back into a cycle, souls moving on, rules that keep the traffic of existence flowing. And then there is the Lich. Not possibility, not inevitability, not closure. He is what happens if you take all three and strip out the assumption that anything continues afterward. Death manages a cycle. The Lich wants to end the cycle itself. No reincarnation, no afterlives, no cozy bureaucratic underworld. Just nothing. Think about that for a second. Even death has a job. The Lich is trying to eliminate the concept of employment. We're going to sit with that contrast because it explains why everyone else feels strangely humane next to him. Prismo grants a wish, and the universe reshuffles. The cosmic owl appears, and a tragedy locks into place. Death swings his scythe, and someone crosses a threshold. But when the Lich moves, he is not rearranging reality. He is subtracting it. And yet, Ooo keeps resisting. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the defenses are ridiculous and profound at the same time. A kingdom of candy people, born from magic and sugar, becomes a kind of insulation against despair. A cursed crown meant to preserve one man's love accidentally spawns alternate timelines where the Lich is delayed or diverted. Vampires, who should be allies of decay, end up stabilizing the food chain by refusing to die properly. Even raw magic, leaking from the Mushroom War's old wounds, curls around him like scar tissue, trapping him in amber beneath the Candy Kingdom, turning an apocalypse into a geological feature. The universe is noisy, the Lich wants silence. Time keeps branching. He wants a single, terminal point. Ooo improvises, mutates, resurrects. He patiently files reality down towards zero. To really understand why that patience is terrifying, we have to go back, far back, before candy, before crowns, before Ooo itself. Back to the human world, to the war that cracked reality open and gave the whisper of anti-life its first real body. Before the green flame, the human world on the edge of the Mushroom War. So, picture this. Before the green skull, before the cracked sky and the candy ruins, there was a human night that looked almost familiar. Highways like glowing veins, cities buzzing softly, satellite dishes tilted up like metal flowers, listening for a kinder universe. Screens everywhere. Screens in pockets, on wrists, on the sides of buildings. People scrolling through tiny arguments while, far above them, orbital weapons traced invisible circles in the dark. Here is the thing. On paper, it was impressive. Clean skyscrapers, medicine that could rewrite your cells, engines that could leave the planet if you gave them enough fuel and enough fear. Humanity had pulled reality apart into equations and patents and classified projects, and then started building bigger, brighter, louder tools just to see if they could. Not evil, not even especially reckless in any one moment, just cumulative, like leaving one candle burning, then 1,000, then 1,000,000 in a house made of dry paper. Let's start with the tension you can't quite name. Governments smiling on television while submarines slid under black water carrying warheads with polite acronyms. Laboratories glowing at 3 in the morning. White coats watching simulations of blast radii expand across digital continents. There were rules, of course, treaties, fail-safes, red phones that were supposed to mean we will stop before the edge. But in that specifically Adventure Time way, the rules were also a dare. If you build a weapon that can end a continent, doesn't some quiet part of you want to know what it looks like? Think about that for a second. The multiverse is full of beings who can snap a timeline in half with a wish. But here, ordinary humans were trying to brute force the same power with uranium and equations. They were reaching for the center of time using missile silos instead of magic circles. And somewhere in that reach, something ancient noticed. Not a god, not yet a lich, just a pressure in the dark places under reality, the way mold notices when you leave bread out too long. Down beneath those clean cities, under bunkers and subway tunnels, there were older chambers, fossils, cursed artifacts, forgotten cults that never quite worked, little reservoirs of pre-human magic, sealed and mislabeled as geological anomalies on military maps. When the first test warheads went off, their shockwaves didn't just move air and soil, they rang through those chambers like a bell. Anti-life heard its first distant chime. Missiles arced through the sky like falling stars no one made a wish on. Impact flashes turned night into a white so bright it had no shadows. Laboratories that had glowed gently in the dark now burned, their instruments liquefying, their carefully contained particles and sigils and equations, all mixing in a single catastrophic exhale. It wasn't just that people died. Existence itself in that region of the universe was briefly overexposed, and in that overexposure, the wall tore. Nuclear fire punched a hole through the old magical quarantine, and something leaned in. The Lich is not purely human invention. He is not purely ancient curse. He is the fusion point. The place where warheads met warlocks, where fallout wrapped itself around an idea that had been waiting since the first cell divided. When the Mushroom War finally climaxed, it didn't just end a civilization. It opened a permanent bruise in the timeline, a weak spot in reality big enough for a green flame to root itself. The human world thought it was destroying enemies. Instead, it was inviting a patient silence. And that silence, once it found a body, was not going to leave Ooo alone. Because the blast was only the beginning. The real story starts with what crawled out of that crater and how the world tried, very gently and very desperately, to put it back. The birth of anti-life, how the Mushroom War created the Lich. So let's start in the silence after the scream. The sirens have already melted. The arguments, the speeches, the last-minute regrets of generals are gone. What's left is a horizon that used to be a city, washed out in a white flash so bright it erases the idea of color. And then, slowly, the universe blinks. The white collapses into a sick, lingering green afterimage that clings to your vision like mold on the inside of your eyes. Here is the thing. The mushroom bomb is not just a weapon. It is a wish. It is humanity pointing at the world and saying, with all its technology and all its fear, I desire you to end. Nuclear fire blooms upward, but threaded through that pillar of light is something older, thinner, wilder. Ambient magic, ley lines, half-forgotten rituals, the background radiation of wizards and warlocks, all dragged screaming into the center of time for one concentrated moment. The air tastes wrong. Metallic, like you've been chewing on batteries and rust. Reality ripples. Glass flows like water, and then freezes mid-wave. Shadows burn into walls. Somewhere, in that boiling intersection of science and sorcery, the rules get confused. They try to decide whether this is an explosion, or a spell, or the death of a timeline, and in that hesitation, in that tiny logical stutter, something new is allowed to exist. It does not appear as a fully formed skeleton with a crown and a speech prepared. Not yet. First, it's a pressure. A cold, crawling dread that moves across the ruins before any wind returns, the way you feel a storm in your bones before you see clouds. Animals go silent. The last human thoughts in the blast radius dissolve into one long psychic scream, and that scream doesn't vanish. It folds. It condenses. It becomes intent. We're going to call that intent the Lich. But at this point, he is more like a bruise on existence than a person. A green bruise pulsing at the edge of perception. Radiation gives him heat, curses give him shape, and the dying world gives him a purpose so simple it might as well be a commandment. Make this feeling permanent. Extend this silence outward, until there is nothing left to hurt. Think about that for a second. He is not a demon that wandered in from some other universe to cause trouble. He is the shadow the war casts, the logical conclusion of a species that built its own extinction device and then pressed the button. If you can industrialize death, if you can mechanize the end of your own timeline, do you really get to be surprised when the concept of end everything stands up and walks around? In that specifically Adventure Time way, the show wraps this horror in a green flame and a skeletal grin, but underneath the aesthetic, the logic is painfully clean. The Lich is anti-life-given consciousness. Of course, he fixates on wiping out all existence. Of course, every plan is a straight line toward universal zero. That isn't a quirk. That isn't random villain flavor. That is him obeying the terms of his birth. From the first instant, in the heart of the mushroom bomb, his desire is not power or empire or revenge. His desire is absence. And every time you see him later, whispering to Billy, corrupting crowns, reaching through multiverse cracks, you're just watching the original blast wave keep rolling, very slowly, toward the edge of everything. From ruins to Ooo, the Lich's first shadow over the future, that blast wave doesn't stop when the mushroom cloud fades. It keeps going, long after the fire has cooled and the sirens have rusted away, moving invisibly through time while the world above it forgets what was burning in the first place. Let's start with the silence after the war. Human cities collapse into hollow rib cages of concrete and rebar, glass teeth falling out one by one. The oceans creep in. Forests reclaim parking lots. Magic, shaken loose by that impossible explosion, seeps down through subway tunnels and sewer lines, filling the cracks in reality like bioluminescent groundwater. Centuries pass, then more. Empires rise out of landfills and shopping malls. Slime kingdoms bubble out of irradiated harbors. Candy people grow where grocery aisles used to be. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the apocalypse slowly composts into something bright and weird and almost cozy. Here is the thing. The Lich does not have to survive this. Survival is for living beings. He is not alive. He is the absence where life should be. So while species mutate into dogs that talk and vampires that philosophize, the Lich persists as a kind of background curse, a residue baked into the bedrock. Sometimes he's a buried body, entombed in amber beneath what will become the Candy Kingdom. Sometimes he's more like a pressure, a wandering anti-life weather system, moving through forgotten bunkers and bomb craters, waiting for a weak spot in the world's new smile. Think about that for a second. On the surface, Ooo is a toy box. Candy citizens, hot dog nights, literal breakfast royalty. But underneath, the same crater that once opened in the heart of the mushroom bomb is still there, metaphysically speaking, running like a fault line beneath every candy-colored kingdom. The Lich is that fault line. He doesn't need an army. He doesn't need worshippers. He just needs time. And Ooo gives him plenty. We're going to drift through those early shadows. Long before Finn and Jake, there are dead zones in the landscape where plants won't grow and voices echo a little too long. Skeletons that walk without necromancers. Wells that whisper extinction wishes to anyone who leans too close. Old human bunkers full of frozen bodies that never rot, because the Lich's presence has stripped even decay of its usual enthusiasm. People tell legends about a green skull in the dark, about a horned giant that appears in dreams at the exact moment someone dies alone. They don't know his name, but the universe does. On some level, reality remembers the rules written in that first explosion. Magic crowns begin to crack around the edges. War heroes like Billy feel an enemy they've never quite defeated, pressing against the back of their victories. Even when the Lich is physically trapped, locked in amber, sealed in caverns, his influence leaks out as quietly as groundwater, curving the timeline toward one eventual meeting. By the time a human boy in a funny hat is born under strange stars, Ooo looks healed, colorful, safe enough, but the blast wave is still moving. The Lich is already there, buried and patient, watching from beneath candy streets and cosmic cracks, quietly arranging his first real move, and the first hero he plans to break. Amber beneath candy, the Lich's first defeat and frozen apocalypse, so when we say the Lich is already there, we mean it literally, not metaphorically, not as a vibe. He is physically present in Ooo, embalmed in glowing resin, like a museum exhibit the universe is trying very hard to forget. Picture this. Deep under the cobblestone streets of the Candy Kingdom, past frosting foundations and sugar bedrock, there's a cavern of honey-colored light, and in the center of it hangs a skeleton made of hatred. His ribcage is caved in mid-roar. His jaw is open around a scream that never finishes. Green fire leaks from his eyes and fingertips, but it's frozen, each flame tongue caught in place like glass, as if time itself hit pause on a frame of pure annihilation. Here is the thing. The Lich is still radiating death magic in there. It's just suspended, like someone pressed their thumb into the mute button on the end of all existence, and then walked away, hoping the remote never slips. We're going to quietly rewind for a second, because the show doesn't hand you a detailed battle log. Before the series starts, heroes like Billy face him. There is a clash we never fully see, only hear about in legend, and see in statues and songs. Billy, Oo's greatest champion, defeats the Lich and helps entomb him in that amber, turning a live apocalypse into a geological feature. And then time moves on. Candy people are born. Bakeries open. There are parades. Kids grow up under pink skies. And the story of the Lich becomes bedtime material, not breaking news. Think about that for a second. On the surface, Ooo looks healed, like the Mushroom War was a bad dream the universe woke up from. But one of its loudest nightmares is literally downstairs. The Lich's defeat creates a very gentle illusion of safety, the feeling that the worst already happened and was handled by adults you will never meet. It is the emotional equivalent of pushing a terrifying thought to the back of your mind and stacking cute distractions on top of it until you almost believe it's gone. And right above that buried skull, Princess Bubblegum builds a kingdom of color and control. Laboratories, sugar architecture, carefully graphed happiness. Her reality is bright, rational, aggressively managed. But the foundation of her power literally rests on a fossilized extinction event. That contrast is not subtle. It's candy over a mass grave. Is it any surprise that she becomes obsessive about rules, about surveillance, about predicting every variable? In that specifically Adventure Time way, the show implies that she knows what's down there, or at least feels it, like a pressure in the bedrock of her mind. Because amber is preservation, not deletion. It keeps the mosquito, it does not cure the disease. Those golden walls can crack, magical seals can fail. Heat, time, a careless spell, a bored hero with a big sword. Any of it could be the tiny, stupid moment that lets one frozen green flame flicker again. The Lich's stillness is not his absence. It's just the universe holding its breath, waiting for someone to exhale at the wrong time. Billy, the hero who almost won, a legend built on a lie. So when the universe finally exhales, when that wrong little moment happens and the green flame gets to move again, it doesn't crawl out into chaos. It walks out wearing hope. It walks out wearing Billy. Let's start with the version Finn grows up on. In the stories, Billy is the great hero who took the Lich head-on and won. He is the one who marched into the heart of that anti-life magic, shattered its power, and dragged the Lich's body down into that amber tomb beneath the Candy Kingdom. In the legend, Billy doesn't just punch a monster, he changes the direction of reality. He is the proof that even in a post-Mushroom War wasteland, one person with enough courage, can push back the end of existence itself. For Finn, those stories are not just bedtime tales. They are a blueprint. He models himself on Billy's every pose, every victory, every dramatic tilt of the sword. Billy is the answer to the question, what do you do when the universe throws pure annihilation at you? You swing back. You believe that if your heart is brave enough and your desire to protect is strong enough, victory is permanent. You don't just win the fight. You end the threat. Think about that for a second, because that belief is quietly everything. Here is the thing. Legends in Ooo operate like wishes in the time room. They are technically true, but they are incomplete. The story Finn hears is a clean, polished timeline, edited for broadcast. Billy the mighty warrior, Billy the Lich Slayer, Billy who stands at the center of time in Finn's imagination and says, "It's possible. You can do this." What Finn doesn't see is the negative space around that victory. The strange pauses in Billy's voice, the way his eyes linger a little too long on that amber prison, as if he is remembering a conversation no one else heard. We're going to notice the seams if we look closely. Billy disappears for long stretches of time, as if the universe misplaces its greatest hero whenever the Lich's influence is supposed to be gone. When he returns, his advice to Finn is still heroic, but narrower, more obsessed with getting close to the Lich, with opening paths and portals, with finishing the job in ways that just happen to move the Lich's long game forward. He is not evil. He is not even indifferent. He is just off, like a radio tuned half a frequency into another timeline. And in that specifically Adventure Time way, the show lets you live in the comfort of the myth while sprinkling in these tiny fractures. Billy's shadow falls wrong. His victories leave doors open instead of closed. Hope becomes a costume someone else could wear. When we come back to Billy later, we'll see exactly how the Lich steps into that costume, how annihilation learns to speak in a hero's voice, and how the universe's brightest symbol of courage turns into the softest, cruelest disguise the Lich ever wished for. A skull in the mind, how the Lich thinks, moves, and corrupts, so when annihilation puts on Billy's smile and steps out into the world, something even stranger happens than simple possession. The universe's loudest hero becomes the mask for its quietest villain, because the Lich, wearing Billy, does not roar. He does not gloat. He drifts through reality with the emotional range of a bored clerk at the end of a long shift at the center of time. Here is the thing. The Lich almost never raises his voice. When he speaks, it's measured, flat, like he's reading the end of the book out loud to people who are still on chapter 1. Every sentence lands with this calm implication that the outcome is already decided, that your resistance is not dramatic or inspiring, it's just late. His power isn't just in magic or undeath, it's in that terrifying lack of urgency. He talks like extinction is a meeting that's already on the calendar. Let's start with how he moves without moving. The Lich doesn't charge into cities with armies. He seeps. He gets into minds, into bones, into the quiet corners of desire that people don't look at too closely. Billy is one example, but not the only. One. A crack in a hero's certainty, a moment of doubt in a wizard, a flicker of fear in some background candy citizen. He slides into those gaps the way radiation slides through walls, invisible and patient, leaving mutations in its wake. We're going to see this again and again across the multiverse. He wears other people's faces, their histories, their reputations, like costumes tailored from their own memories. A beloved champion, a harmless old woman, a random skeleton hand reaching out of amber under the Candy Kingdom, twitching at just the right moment in time. He doesn't need to be recognized. In fact, he prefers not to be. Recognition is noisy. Corruption is quiet. And his patience is almost cosmic. He doesn't rush the fall of a timeline. He waits for grief to ripen, for anger to ferment, for loneliness to hollow someone out just enough that a whisper sounds like a wish. Think about that for a second. The Lich doesn't break people. He lets reality do that, and then simply offers them a direction to fall. This is the real contrast with Finn and the other heroes. They have frantic motion, running, shouting, improvising, making last-second deals with Prismo, trying to hack the rules of existence before the countdown hits 0. Finn is all adrenaline and scraped knees and desperate rerouting of fate. The Lich, by comparison, is stillness. He stands in the center of time in his own mind, watching everyone else scramble through the maze he already mapped. And here's the soft pattern interrupt. For a villain who represents the end of everything, he spends a shocking amount of time just waiting, not chasing, not raging, waiting, like someone who's seen every timeline and is tired in a way that sleep can't fix. It's almost as if the universe's greatest enemy is as exhausted by existence as you are, lying there in the dark, listening to a quiet voice explain why, eventually, everything stops. But before we get to that final stillness, we need to trace where he came from and why every timeline keeps growing its own Lich, like a recurring nightmare the universe can't quite wake up from. Enter Prismo's shadow, why the Lich's story needs a wishmaker. So to answer that question, why every timeline keeps growing its own Lich, we actually have to leave Ooo behind for a moment. We have to float up and out of the Candy Kingdom, past the ruined highways and broken oceans, and slip into a place that is technically nowhere and yet sits at the center of time. The Time Room, a cosmic bachelor pad pressed flat against reality, with beanbags, movies, and a glowing pink host who can casually do what the Mushroom War barely managed by accident. Here is the thing. If Ooo is where the Lich walks, the Time Room is where the universe decides which version of the Lich gets to exist in the first place. Prismo is not a wizard. He is not a god. He is a two-dimensional wish, dreaming and being dreamed, lounging in front of an infinite wall of timelines like they're channels he can flip through, even as he's quietly imprisoned inside them. With one clear sentence from a visitor, he can tilt the entire multiverse, not with a spell, with a wish that becomes law. Let's start with the scale of that power. The Lich can end civilizations. Prismo can create them. Farmworld doesn't just happen. It blooms into existence because Finn uses his once-in-a-lifetime wish to undo the Mushroom War, and reality politely branches an entirely new universe to accommodate that desire. One wish, and suddenly there's a different world, a different crown, and, inevitably, a different Lich thawing his way into existence. Think about that for a second. Every time someone stands in that cozy humming room and speaks clearly, a new branch of reality sprouts, complete with its own history, its own heroes, and its own extinction event wearing that familiar green skull. The Lich is an infection, Prismo is the petri dish, and the lab technician and the guy on the couch watching movies, while it all cultures. In this video, we're going to keep returning to that contrast, because it's quietly perfect. The Lich erases possibilities. Prismo manufactures them. One is pure entropy, pulling timelines toward stillness. The other is a cosmic bureaucrat of desire, filing new universes into existence because the rules say he has to grant whatever you ask for, literally and exactly. And in that specifically Adventure Time way, the show hides some of the Lich's most important incarnations inside Prismo's paperwork. Farmworld Lich exists because of a wish. The Crown's twisted paths across realities are shaped by wishes. Even the moments where Finn and Jake think they've outplayed the Lich are actually footnotes in Prismo's domain, where every reset, every escape hatch is stamped, processed, and made real. We're going to slow down with that next, because Prismo's power isn't free, and it isn't loose. It runs on rules. One wish per person. No loopholes for more wishes. Every attempt to wish against the Lich has a cost, a consequence, and usually a tiny opening he can still slip through. So in the next sections, we'll curl up in the time room itself and walk, very gently, through exactly how those rules work, and why even a cosmic wishmaker can't wish the Lich away. The Time Room. A cosmic bachelor pad at the edge of everything, so let's start by actually walking into that place where all those rules live. You close your eyes, and instead of some glowing crystal cathedral at the center of time, you drift into a living room, a cosmic bachelor pad. There's a sagging couch floating in a black void, a TV humming with static, and movies from a universe that technically no longer exists, and Prismo is sprawled across it, like your roommate who accidentally became a fundamental force of reality. The time room looks small, almost disappointingly domestic. A coffee table, snack bowls, that big pickle jar. But this is the trick. The cozier it looks, the more disorienting it is when you realize that every wall is also a screen, and every screen is also a timeline. It's the center of time disguised as a late-night hangout. Think about that for a second. The multiverse is being monitored by a guy in shorts who offers you dip. Here is the thing. This room isn't in Ooo. It isn't even in space. It's a liminal pocket outside normal time, a balcony hanging off the edge of existence, where Prismo can see every timeline at once the way you might flip channels. Farm world. The main reality. Dead universes. Possible futures that never quite gel. He doesn't just watch them. With a correctly phrased wish, he can reach in and nudge them, rewrite cause and effect like you're rearranging furniture. But even here, there are rules. One wish per person per lifetime. No wishing for more wishes. The wish has to be spoken clearly, like a contract read aloud to the cosmos. We're going to keep coming back to that, because Prismo interprets those wishes literally, not cruelly, not with a smirk. Just, precisely, you say, I wish the Lich was gone, and the universe has to decide what gone actually means. He is not a trickster genie. He is not evil. He is not even indifferent. He is just bound by rules older than the universe itself. He is not the monkey's paw waiting to punish your hubris. He's something stranger and sadder, a cosmic civil servant who genuinely wants you to get what you asked for, even when what you asked for is catastrophically misaligned with what you need. And that's where the Lich slides in. Because if existence contains a being whose pure desire is extinction, then a wish-granting time room becomes an emergency lever for reality. A last resort button, glowing softly on Prismo's coffee table. When the Lich reaches this room, he isn't just threatening Ooo, he's threatening the entire decision tree of time. One sentence, spoken clearly in that cozy void, can erase life in every timeline at once. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the universe's final failsafe is also just a chill hang with a cosmic roommate. And in the next section, we'll watch what happens the first time the Lich actually gets to pull that lever. One wish, one lifetime. The delicate rules that shape the Lich's fates. So when the Lich finally speaks in that cozy void, when extinction brushes against the center of time, there's one quiet guardrail between him and absolute silence. The sentence Prismo is allowed to grant. One wish, one lifetime, one clean shot at rewriting reality. Think about that for a second. Here is the thing. That rule means the heroes don't get infinite retries. Finn can't just keep coming back every weekend, barefoot on the beanbag, asking Prismo to undo the Lich again and again like he's save-scumming the multiverse. Once you use your wish, your entire existence has cashed its cosmic check. You can still fight, still hope, still mess up, but you can't walk back into the time room and say, actually, can we try that timeline one more time? So every wish against the Lich has to carry the weight of finality. It has to be precise. And precision is hard when you're panicking. Heroes say things like, make everything better, or stop him forever. But Prismo's power doesn't understand vibes. It understands clauses. If you say, I wish the Lich was gone, the universe will technically comply, but it might comply by moving him, not ending him. A different timeline. A different body. The same anti-life desire humming underneath. We're going to sit with that for a moment, because this is where specificity becomes terrifyingly beautiful. A vague wish is like throwing a net over the multiverse with giant holes in it. The Lich slips through as an echo, as a residue, as bones under a different sky. You don't see him in your reality anymore, and you think you won. Somewhere else, in a cold universe you will never visit, he wakes up again. And then there are edge cases. What happens when two people in two lifetimes spend their one wish on opposite directions of the same problem? One hero wishes for a world where the Lich never existed. Another, in some distant branch, wishes for the power of the crown to save their family. The wishes don't cancel. They stack. They braid. They push the multiverse into strange, overlapping shapes, where the Lich can be both prevented and created at the same time, just in different halls of the same cosmic house. This is not the trickster genie from old stories, twisting your words for fun. It's not the monkey's paw waiting to punish your hubris. Prismo's system is weirder and sadder. It's bureaucratic. It's emotionally grounded. There are forms you can't see, procedures he didn't write, a no wishing for more wishes policy that feels less like a joke and more like an HR guideline for reality. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the universe treats omnipotence like a customer service job. And tucked inside that paperwork is one of the strangest outcomes of all. A whole alternate Earth, snow-choked and human, where the Lich shouldn't exist at all, except he does, precisely because of a wish that was meant to stop him. That's Farmworld. And in the next section, we'll follow how a single desperate sentence in the time room fractures into an entirely new Lich, wearing an entirely different apocalypse. The Old Man in the Bed, Prismo's secret and the nature of reality. So here is the thing hiding underneath Farmworld, underneath the snow and the crown and that alternate Lich. All of it, every branching timeline you've watched on Prismo's screens, is being curated by someone who is not exactly there. Prismo is real, in that specifically Adventure Time way, but he is also literally a dream, not metaphorically, not poetically. A dream. Let's start with the twist as plainly as the show gives it to you. Somewhere outside the multiverse, in a quiet, dim room that is not the center of time, an old man is lying in a simple bed. No monitors, no cosmic screens, just a body. He is frail, almost translucent with age, the kind of stillness where even breathing feels like a memory. And as he sleeps, his dreaming mind projects Prismo and the time room into existence, like a cosmic screensaver running on the last computer in the universe. The bed is ordinary. The consequences are not. Because if Prismo is a dream, then every wish he grants, every timeline he edits, every version of the Lich he accidentally creates or carefully erases, is balanced on the thinnest biological contingency imaginable. One person has to stay asleep, wake the old man, and the entire time room blinks out. Prismo's pink, two-dimensional body. The infinite screens. The beanbag. The pickle jar. Gone. Like a channel you flipped away from and can never quite find again. Think about that for a second. The Lich stands in the time room and wishes for the extinction of all life, and the success or failure of that cosmic desire is downstream of whether some unseen grandpa had chamomile tea or espresso before bed. That is not how omnipotence is supposed to work. That is how a very tired ontology professor starts weeping into their syllabus because the show has just asked, if a reality-warping wishmaster is a dream, is his reality less real than the universe he's rewriting? We're going to lean into that. Prismo has friends. He has a job, he has rules, and a boss and an entire bureaucracy of time. People remember him, grieve him when he dies, risk everything to bring him back. By any common-sense standard, he exists. But ontologically, he is still a process in one sleeping brain. a side project of a nap. The multiverse's most elaborate lucid dream, and this loops us gently back to the Lich. Farmworld's Lich only exists because Prismo honored a wish that forked reality. Oo's Lich keeps colliding with heroes whose choices are sometimes nudged by Prismo's interventions. In some timelines, the universe's purest force of annihilation is not a primordial curse or a nuclear accident. He's a side effect, a byproduct of one dream being edited, patched, and hotfixed by its own projection. In the next section, we'll follow that side effect back in time, tracing how the Lich first seeps into reality long before anyone ever steps into the time room at all. Dreams against death, what it means to fight the Lich in a dreamed reality. And if the Lich can be a side effect of a wish, here is the thing. You have to ask what that does to his reality. If Prismo is a dream, and his time room at the center of time is basically a cosmic sleepover, then all those timelines he spins out for Finn, for Jake, for the Lich himself, what are they exactly? Are they universes? Or are they just very elaborate thoughts? Let's start with the uncomfortable question. If the original Lich crawls out of the Mushroom War, fused from nuclear fire and necromantic desire, and a different Lich is born in Farmworld because a wish weaponizes the Ice Crown, is one of them less real? The show doesn't give you a neat chart. It just shows you a skeleton hand reaching out of a frozen crater in one timeline, and a skeleton hand reaching out of a ruined city in another, and it invites you to notice that both hands end worlds. Think about that for a second, because consciousness is doing a lot of quiet work here. The Lich, in every branch, thinks. He plans. He waits. He stares through whoever he's puppeting, Billy, Snail, Sweet Pea, with the same cold, patient awareness. He is not confused. He is not a glitch. He is a mind with one perfect, horrifying desire. And if a dreamed universe produces a mind like that, with that much power to unmake existence, does it really matter that it was dreamed into being instead of detonated into being by a bomb? In this video, we're going to keep circling that question because it hits Finn and Jake right in the heart. They don't stand in front of Farmworld's Lich and say, "Ah yes, a derivative annihilation entity from a lower-tier reality." They just fight. They hurl themselves at him in the time room, in ruined cities, in quiet fields where Sweet Pea is trying very hard to be a kid and not a cosmic death seed. Their courage doesn't scale down just because a timeline was technically spun up by a nap. And that repetition matters. The Lich keeps coming back across the multiverse, not only because he's persistent, but because the universe itself seems to lean toward him. Every reality, whether it erupts from the Mushroom War or from a misphrased wish, drifts toward its own form of entropy. Not always a green skull. Sometimes it's a crown or a comet, or a lonely god in a time prison. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the multiverse keeps asking the same question in different costumes. What happens when the desire for silence meets the desire to live? We're going to pull on that thread more in a moment. But for now, as you're lying there in the dark, trying to fall asleep to all of this, just remember, if Prismo's a dream, and his timelines are dreams, then your nightmares might be dreams too, which raises a very small, very stupid possibility. Somewhere out there, is there a nightmare having a nightmare about the Lich and trying very hard to wake up? Wish one. Finn's desperate undoing of the Lich's first victory. So let's follow that nightmare, because while some cosmic horror is out there trying to wake up from the Lich, Finn is in the opposite position, a boy who has seen the Lich win and is begging the universe to let him go back to sleep in a better timeline. Let's start in Prismo's time room, at the center of time, where the screens are still humming with the Lich's wish for extinction. Finn arrives there raw, Billy's betrayal still echoing the image of that green skull voice scraping through reality still lodged behind his eyes. Jake is gone, absorbed into the Lich's victory. Ooh is one step from non-existence. And here is the thing, Finn is not thinking like a tactician or a wizard or a cosmic being. He's thinking like a traumatized teenager who has just watched the worst possible outcome play out in front of him. So when Prismo offers him a wish, the desire that spills out is simple and enormous. Finn doesn't want to fix the Lich. He wants to erase him. He wishes to go back to a timeline where the Lich never even existed, to a world where that anti-life magic never crawled out of the aftermath of the Mushroom War. Think about that for a second. He is not asking for victory. He is asking for denial, for a universe where the wound never opened. Prismo grants it. Of course he does. One wish per person, clear wording, no moral veto. Reality folds, the time room peels away, and suddenly Finn is standing in snow, in a human body that remembers a completely different life. Farm World. A branch of the multiverse where the Mushroom War's power didn't crystallize into the Lich in the same way, where the apocalypse took a more mundane, gun and jacket shape instead of a robed skeleton at the end of existence. On the surface, it looks like success. No Lich rampaging through the Candy Kingdom. No green comet prophecy bearing down on Ooo. Just a farm, a family, a rough human civilization limping along after the bombs. But we're going to slow down here, because the emotional core is the real pivot. Finn's wish is not carefully engineered like a spell. It's a scream. It comes from guilt that he failed to stop the Lich, from terror of that cosmic silence the Lich promises, and from a very human urge to go back to before. And the universe, through Prismo, takes that scream literally. That is the paradox of wish power in that specifically Adventure Time way. You can bend a timeline, you can reroute an entire reality, but you cannot make a person less broken by what they've seen. Finn brings his fear into Farm World. He brings his hero complex. He brings his tendency to poke at sealed doors. Which is why this Lich-free universe does not stay Lich-free for long. The rules of existence in this multiverse have a dark symmetry. Remove one origin, another emerges. By trying to undo the Lich's first victory, Finn unknowingly sets the stage for a new Lich to be born from an even stranger source. One bound not just to nuclear fire and death magic, but to the Ice Crown itself. And in the next part, we'll watch that wish curdle into something much worse. Farm World unfolds, a timeline without Ooo, but not without the Lich, so the wish ripples out, and reality blinks. Ooo is gone. Candy kingdoms, vampire queens, talking rain clouds, all of it erased from this particular timeline. In its place, the universe exhales something harsher, colder, and much more familiar to you if you've ever stared at a ruined parking lot at midnight and imagined the end of the world. Let's start in Farm World, where the apocalypse feels less whimsical and more like a bruise that never healed. Snow lies heavy over broken highways. Human settlements huddle in the ribs of collapsed skyscrapers, burning scavenged plastic and old furniture for warmth. The color palette shifts. Fewer neon pinks, more rusted grays and dead blues. Magic is rare here, almost an urban legend, and when it does appear, it feels dangerous rather than delightful. Think about that for a second. Same Mushroom War, same universe, but the tone of existence has tipped from surreal fantasy into grounded survival horror. In this timeline, the Mushroom War played out with fewer candy-coated miracles to catch the fallout. No Princess Bubblegum to alchemize the ruins into a kingdom. No Rainicorn Air Force. Just humans, weapons, and the slow, ugly physics of nuclear fire. The Ice Crown is still born from that catastrophe. But here is the thing. It doesn't get folded into a fairy tale about a sad ice wizard. It sits out there like raw, exposed nerve. A jagged relic of pre-war power, half buried in ice and legend. Waiting for the wrong person with the right desire. Farm World Finn grows up in the shadow of that absence. He isn't a chosen hero mentored by dogs and candy royalty. He's a kid with frostbitten fingers, a patched jacket, and a family that measures time in winters survived. His dad is present, his mom is tough, His little siblings cling to him when raiders come through. Instead of quests for cosmic power, there are runs for gasoline, canned food, and medical supplies. Survival is the only rule. Heroism is just doing what keeps your people alive one more day. And yet, the Lich is only missing in the way a loaded gun in an empty room is missing. The conditions that created him in Ooo, war, radiation, unstable magic, the psychic scar of a civilization that tried to kill itself, are all still here, embedded in the bedrock of this timeline. The Mushroom War still tore a hole in reality. The ambient death magic still soaked into the soil. The multiverse doesn't forget that easily. So we're going to watch as all those dormant elements line up. A boy who loves his family more than he fears the rules of the universe. A crown humming with frozen parasitic consciousness. A world still echoing with the original extinction event. All it will take is one desperate wish, made at the wrong moment, at the center of time for this branch of reality, and the farm world Lich will open his eyes for the very first time. But before he rises, we need to follow the crown itself and how it quietly sharpens farm world Finn's desire into a weapon. The crown's cold mistake, how a wish creates the farm world Lich, so we follow the crown. Not as a quirky relic in Simon's tragic arc, but as a cold, thinking pattern of magic that keeps trying to solve the same problem in every timeline. How do you protect what you love when the universe is collapsing? In Farm World, there is no mushroom bomb Lich waiting under the ice. There is only hunger, cold, and human beings trying to survive long enough to see another sunrise. Let's start with that world. Farm World Finn is not a chosen hero. He's a working kid with frostbitten fingers and too much responsibility. The sky is a hard, pale ceiling. Bandits roam. Magic is rare and mostly terrible. When the Ice Crown shows up here, it's not framed as a cursed artifact of cosmic tragedy. It is a shortcut, a promise, a way to finally have power in a reality that has done nothing but push him around. Here is the thing. The crown always listens for a wish. Not a formal Prismo-style center-of-time contract, but a raw, unedited desire. In Ooo, Simon's was to protect Betty and the world. In Farm World, that impulse gets stripped down even further. Surrounded by danger, holding this impossible source of power, Farm World Finn reaches for the same sentence every frightened human eventually reaches for. I wish everyone was safe. I wish I could stop all this pain. Think about that for a second. He isn't asking for domination. He's asking for an end. And the crown, in that specifically Adventure Time way, takes end very seriously. It is not evil. It is not even indifferent. It is just bound by rules older than time itself. Safety, interpreted literally, means no more threats, no more suffering, no more anything. So the crown channels the same annihilating current that once braided nuclear fire and necromantic magic into the first Lich, and it pours that current straight through a terrified farm boy's brain. The farm world Lich doesn't rise from a bomb crater. He flowers out of a wish. The crown freezes Finn's compassion, hollows it, and turns it outward. His body twists, his face stretches into that familiar skull mask, and the I wish everyone was safe becomes nothing should live. His voice scrapes through reality like nails on the fabric of existence itself. A new incarnation of entropy, handcrafted by human fear using a magical user interface designed for love. We're going to sit with the pattern here for a moment, because it matters. Prismo's careful wish bureaucracy is absent in Farm World, but the multiverse still rhymes with itself. Even when a timeline dodges the original extinction event, the same combination keeps reappearing. Fear, power, and the desire to skip the slow, painful work of living with risk. You remove the mushroom bomb, and the universe just routes around it, finding another way to generate the same archetype. And here's the quiet irony. The crown was built to shield one fragile human mind from chaos. In Farm World, it scales that up. It tries to shield everyone. It just does it by inviting the purest chaos the universe has ever produced to step onto the stage again. A hat designed to keep the cold out becomes the doorway for a colder presence entirely. That is the crown's cold mistake, and as Farmworld Lich opens his eyes, the multiverse learns something uncomfortable. You can delay entropy, you can redirect it, you can even freeze it in ice. But if you keep wishing for absolute safety, you will eventually wish for him. Next, we'll watch what happens when this wishborn Lich finally meets the boy who made him. Wish 2. Counter-wishing the Farmworld Lich back into containment. So while Farmworld Finn is still reeling from the crown's quiet betrayal, you jump back with us to the center of time, into that dim, cozy bachelor pad where reality goes to get rewritten on a couch. Finn and Jake step into Prismo's time room again, carrying the knowledge that their last wish didn't save a universe. It just outsourced its apocalypse. Here is the thing about follow-up wishes. They are never really follow-ups. They are confessions. They're you going back to the cosmic clerk and saying, "I misunderstood my own desire." Finn has already used his one lifetime wish, so this time it's Jake's turn to stand in the orange glow, look up at a being made of dreamlight, and try to fix an entire timeline with one sentence. Let's start by paraphrasing what he's actually reaching for. Jake doesn't wish to erase Farmworld. He doesn't wish the Lich had never been born. He wishes, in essence, that the Farmworld Lich be neutralized and contained, that everyone there be given a chance to live without being wiped out again, that balance be restored without pressing the cosmic delete key. It's a wish against overcorrection. A wish that tries to honor existence instead of overwriting it. Prismo listens. He is not evil. He is not even indifferent. He is just bound by rules older than time itself, so he threads the needle as literally and as gently as he can. The result is strangely surgical. The Farmworld Lich is pulled out of his rampage, redirected into a new containment, funneled away from mass extinction, and into a fate that looks almost merciful from the outside. Not destroyed, not triumphant, just intercepted. And Farmworld keeps going. That is important. That whole timeline, born from a wish and then corrupted by another, does not vanish in a puff of narrative convenience. It limps forward with scars, a world that has seen its own end open its eyes, a family that has watched their father almost become a conduit for cosmic death, an ice crown that has proven it can dream up annihilation on its own. Think about that for a second. The wish fixed the emergency, but it did not unmake the trauma. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the multiverse quietly admits that you cannot fully erase what has been set in motion. You can trap the Lich in amber. You can bury him under Candy Kingdom, or lock him in a baby-sized body, or strand him in a dead universe. Each solution works. Each solution leaves a mark. Every timeline where he touched reality stays real, and it remembers him. And while Finn is busy counter-wishing one apocalypse back into its box, something colder is happening off-screen. Back in Ooo, the original Lich has already learned a subtler trick than extinction beams and mushroom clouds. He has learned how to move through the world in a more intimate way, not as a skeleton at the door of the universe, but as a hero you already trust, as a champion's smiling face worn like armor, as Billy's smile, the Lich's eyes, possession and quiet invasion. Billy's smile is the first weapon, not the gauntlet, not the legendary sword, just that easy, familiar curve of the mouth that tells Finn, tells the whole universe, the hero has arrived and everything is going to be okay. And here is the thing. When the Lich finally learns how to move quietly, he doesn't start with a roar, he starts with that smile. Let's start with the behavioral glitches, the hairline fractures in reality you only notice when you replay the timeline in your head. Billy, the restless adventurer, becomes still, too still. He listens more than he talks. His voice flattens. The way he says, "Finn has weight but no warmth," like someone remembering a name from a file. He doesn't joke. He doesn't reminisce. He just directs. Efficient. Focused. Wrong. Finn feels it before he understands it. This is his role model, the hero who supposedly punched the Lich into non-existence, and suddenly he's suggesting a wish. A cosmic shortcut. Use Prismo. Go to the center of time. Destroy the Lich at the source. On paper, that sounds perfect. In practice, it feels like someone else is piloting Billy from behind his eyes. Think about that for a second. The bravest man in Ooo, reduced to a mouthpiece that points a child at a wishmaster. The emotional betrayal lands very quietly. No screaming. No dramatic monologue. Just the slow realization that the story Finn has built his identity around, Billy the Lich Slayer, Billy the unbeatable hero, was already compromised. The victory statue in his mind has been hollowed out and worn like armor by the very force it celebrated defeating. He is not watching a hero fall. He is watching a hero already gone. We're going to sit with the Lich's strategy here, because it is elegantly cruel. As a skeleton wreathed in green anti-life, he triggers every defense system in the universe. People run. Shields go up. Gods pay attention. But inside Billy, he bypasses all of that. He walks through the Candy Kingdom unchallenged. He stands next to Princess Bubblegum and Finn and Jake, inside their trust radius, and no one flinches. Possession is not just mind control. It is social engineering written directly onto a beloved face. This is corrupted idealism as a tactical weapon. The brightest symbol of hope becomes camouflage for despair. The Lich doesn't need to destroy the legend of Billy. He just needs to inhabit it. Turn heroism into a delivery system. Turn a story about resistance into a straight, unobstructed line to Prismo's couch. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the show tells you that even the purest desire to be like your hero can be exploited if you never question who is steering that ideal. And when Billy's smile finally peels back into the Lich's true expression, when the eyes go dead and the voice drops into that scraping register, you realize that possession was never a side quest. It was the main route, the quiet invasion that carries the Lich all the way to the center of time, into Prismo's jurisdiction, right up to the edge of the ultimate power. A wish of his own. What does a being of pure extinction ask for when it finally stands in a room where reality listens? We're about to watch him answer. When death makes a wish, the Lich in Prismo's living room, the door to the time room slides open without a sound, and the universe's quietest apocalypse walks in wearing Billy's face. You can almost hear the contrast. Prismo's cozy, humming bachelor pad at the center of time, and that still, hateful presence moving across the shag carpet. Let's start with the vibe, because the vibe is insane. On one side, Prismo, a two-dimensional pink ripple sprawled on a couch, watching the multiverse like late-night TV, pickle jar on the table, movies queued up, the whole relaxed cosmic hangout. On the other side, Billy's body, but emptied out, hollowed, the Lich using him like a ceremonial robe. His eyes are wrong. His posture is wrong. There is no hero in the room. Just extinction, politely visiting. Here is the thing about the Lich in this moment. He doesn't rant. He doesn't monologue. When he finally speaks his wish, it comes out with this flat, almost bureaucratic clarity. No theatrics. Just a desire that all life in the universe be extinguished. Every organism. Every timeline's little experiments in consciousness. Gone. Think about that for a second. Not conquest, not dominion, not power. Just the erasure of existence itself, filed like a clean, efficient request. And Prismo, unfortunately, is at work. We're going to sit with his reaction, because it is quietly brutal. Prismo knows exactly who this is. He knows what Billy is supposed to be, and what is piloting him now. You can feel him hesitate. You can feel the cosmic equivalent of a deep sigh, but the rules are older than his personal feelings. 1 wish per person per lifetime. Clearly spoken. No moral veto. He is not evil. He is not even indifferent. He is just bound by procedures he did not design. A dream employee following a handbook that governs reality. So he grants it. Not with fireworks. With a subtle shift, like the multiverse tilting a few degrees toward non-existence, the second that wish is accepted, you can feel time itself start to lean in the Lich's direction. Somewhere, stars begin to gutter. Life on distant worlds flickers like candles in a draft. It's not instantaneous, because Adventure Time loves consequences that travel, that unfold, that spread outward from a single sentence, like a stain in the fabric of reality. And the show literalizes that by sending us to Farm World. The wish does not just kill, it rewrites. It peels off an entire alternate timeline where the Crown, Simon, and the Lich are braided together differently, all because Prismo had to honor the request exactly as phrased. In this video, we're going to keep following that logic. What happens when Annihilation gets a clean shot at the wish system? But here, at the center of time, something else is happening too. Finn and Jake are in the room. They are technically out of wishes. The rules look airtight. So how do 2 sleepy heroes, trapped in a cosmic living room with death itself, manage to bend those rules without completely breaking them? We'll slip into that loophole next. Sandwiches and second chances, Jake's wish, and the art of the sideways fix. So here is the thing. When you put the Lich, Finn, Jake, and a cosmic wishmaster in the same room at the center of time, you expect reality-shattering ultimatums, not lunch. The Lich asks for extinction. Finn begs for a universe where the Lich never existed. The multiverse shivers. And then Jake, stretching in the corner like he's at a sleepover, quietly wants the perfect sandwich. Let's start with that contrast. The Lich's desire is absolute erasure, a clean subtraction of life from existence. Finn's wish is desperate damage control, a heroic attempt to reroute an entire timeline away from annihilation. And Jake? Jake is hungry. He is literally standing in the same time room where destinies fracture and reform, and his one lifetime wish is calibrated to mayonnaise ratios and ideal bread density. Think about that for a second. In a universe where power can rewrite causality, one of the most important moves against cosmic death is motivated by lunch. But Jake's wish is not nothing. It is not irrelevant. Because of the rules, because of timing, because of presence. Jake is physically in the time room when the Lich, wearing Billy's body, makes his extinction wish. Finn burns his one wish to create Farm World, an alternate timeline where the Lich's origin is delayed and distorted. That should be it. 1 wish per person. Game over. Yet Jake is still there, unwished, unspent, a soft, lazy variable hanging in the center of time. We're going to follow the sideways angle. When Finn's wish ejects everyone into Farm World, Jake gets dragged along as collateral reality. He doesn't articulate some grand counterspell. He just eventually uses his wish, through Prismo, to get that perfect sandwich and, crucially, to get back home. It's a return vector wish, a homing beacon baked into deli meat. And that trajectory, that insistence on going back to their original timeline, helps snap the narrative away from a clean Lich victory and into a messy, branching compromise. Thematically, it's wild. On one side, the Lich presses for total silence, the end of every heartbeat in the multiverse. On the other, Jake asks for a snack assembled at the exact right moment. The universe holds both at once. Extinction and appetite, void and mustard. The Lich wants to flatten reality into a single dead state. Jake's wish reintroduces specificity, preference, the weird little textures of being alive. And the result is not that the Lich is erased. Far from it. The wish chain shunts him into new forms. Farm World Lich born from the Crown, later the tiny whimpering lich seed carried like a horrible houseplant. No clean victory, just containment, mutation, delay. Jake's sideways intervention doesn't slam the door. It wedges it with a sandwich, forcing annihilation to keep tripping over new circumstances instead of gliding into a perfect ending. Pattern interrupt. In this video about cosmic wish mechanics and the ethics of power, lunch accidentally saves the universe. That is funny. But it's also quietly profound. Because Adventure Time keeps telling you that reality is shaped not only by grand, abstract desires, but by small, embodied ones. A hero's panic, a dog's hunger, a wish to go home. And once you see that, you start to wonder what other tiny personal wishes are quietly tilting the timelines, just off-screen, while the Lich keeps trying to make everything go quiet again. Rule synthesis. What the Lich teaches us about wishing wrong, so let's pull back from all those tiny tilted moments and look at the pattern they're tracing. Because hidden inside every Lich encounter, every panicked wish, there is a quiet, brutal syllabus of how wishing actually works in this universe. Let's start with the basics, the rules that never really get said out loud, but keep deciding everything. One wish per person, per lifetime. Spoken clearly. No wishing for more wishes. No direct do-overs. You don't erase a timeline, you just fork it. Think about that for a second. When the Lich says, "I wish for the extinction of all life," Prismo doesn't rewind existence. He slides the multiverse sideways into a new branch where that desire becomes law. The original line of time keeps humming somewhere off-screen, like a song you walked away from. Here is the thing. Those rules are weirdly compassionate and terrifying at the same time. You can't just say, "I wish that wish never happened." You have to spend your one shot on a new reality that grows around the old damage. Finn's wish for the Lich to be sent to the Citadel doesn't cancel the farm world apocalypse, it just opens a different hallway. Every correction is an addition, never a subtraction. The timelines pile up like unsent emails in the cosmic outbox. And then there are the edge cases, the little legal glitches that the Lich keeps sliding his bones through. What counts as a person if they're possessed? Like Billy with the Lich riding inside his skin. Who is really making the wish? When the Ice Crown in Farm World spawns its own Lich, that's not the original one taking his turn again. That's a whole new existence. A fresh lifetime with its own one wish waiting like a loaded sentence. Even attempts to stop him can empower him. A wish to banish, a wish to contain, a wish to resurrect someone who will one day free him again. The universe is very literal and very patient. In this video, we're going to keep saying this because Adventure Time keeps saying it. Prismo is not a trickster god. He is not evil. He is not even indifferent. He is just bound by rules older than he is. Where other myths give you monkey's paw curses or malicious genies, this system is strangely procedural. The punishment isn't that the Wishmaster hates you. The punishment is that the universe takes you exactly at your word. So Prismo becomes a cosmic bureaucrat at the center of time, filing reality like paperwork. He has a boss. He has procedures. He has no moral veto over the Lich or over you. He can nudge, joke, stall, but when a clear desire hits his ears, power flows and a new branch of existence snaps into place. Think about that the next time you imagine ultimate power. It looks a lot like customer service, and yet, in that specifically Adventure Time way, all these rules keep circling something smaller and more human. The Lich wants endings. Prismo fears them. Finn and Jake keep wishing sideways around them. Underneath the timelines and the cosmic paperwork, this is really a story about the terror of things stopping and the strange loneliness of beings who live just outside the soft, ordinary arc of a normal life. We'll follow that loneliness next, as we trace where the Lich actually comes from and why he never quite goes away. Silence in the time room. Prismo's loneliness and the weight of the Lich. So when we say loneliness, we're not just talking about Finn staring at the stars. We're talking about a cosmic bachelor pad at the literal center of time, where the only constant sound is the low electrical hum of infinity playing reruns of itself on a wall of screens. Prismo is there, stretched out on a beanbag watching movies from 1,000 timelines at once, dipping a chip into that famous pickle jar, like it's the only hobby he's allowed to have. Here is the thing. That really is his daily life. He wakes up already awake, because he never sleeps. He flips through universes the way you flip channels when you're too tired to commit to a show. Sometimes he narrates along with a doomed hero in some distant multiverse. Sometimes he laughs at a joke no one else will ever hear. Mostly he waits. Visitors might not show up for years, or centuries, or entire cycles of a universe expanding and collapsing. And when someone finally does appear in the time room, they're usually desperate, terrified, or both. Let's start with the Lich as an example of how that wears on him. In this video, we're going to keep coming back to that wish. I wish for the extinction of all life. On paper, Prismo is chill. He's lounging, he's quipping, he's following the rules. One wish per person. Clearly spoken. No moral veto. But every time a being like the Lich walks in, Prismo is the one who has to turn that sentence into a timeline. He presses the cosmic enter key, and somewhere reality buckles. Think about that for a second. From the outside, he's the laid-back wish guy. From the inside, he is the quiet clerk of annihilation, filing universes into continued and erased folders that no one else will ever see. He creates Farm World to contain a wish. He helps Finn and Jake counter an extinction event by spawning alternate realities. He patches over cosmic wounds with more timelines, and then he has to sit there and watch what those patches become. And yet, for all that power, he is frighteningly fragile. Prismo can rewrite existence with a sentence, but he cannot step outside the time room. He can pull a new universe out of a wish, but he cannot reach back along the thin, invisible thread that ties him to a sleeping old man and say, "Please don't wake up." If the dreamer rolls over, if the spell fails, Prismo is gone. The center of time just blinks. This is where he and the Lich quietly rhyme. The Lich is bound to forces he didn't choose. The Mushroom War, nuclear fire braided with dark magic, the raw entropy woven into his bones. Prismo is bound to a single human mind on a random bed in a mundane reality. Both are cosmic. Both reshape the multiverse. Neither gets to pick the terms of their own existence. So as Prismo floats in his cozy prison, watching the Lich's timelines branch and collapse like a slow-motion avalanche, there's a strange symmetry building. One being who wants everything to stop, and one being who can never clock out. And just as Prismo is trapped in this soft, neon cage of infinite choice, the Lich is heading toward a trap of his own, a form he never wanted, a body that will twist his pure annihilation into something smaller, pettier, and almost domestic. From skull to seed, the Lich's transformation into sweet pea. So when that trap finally springs, it doesn't look like a grand cosmic execution. It looks like a flash of light, a wish misfiring, reality crumpling in on itself, and the Lich, this walking extinction event, being blasted down into something you could hold in your arms. One moment, skeletal horror, rotting cloak, eyes like black holes in the fabric of existence. The next, a small green baby on the floor, quiet, blinking, confused. Let's start with that image, because it's absurd on purpose. The Lich, who once stood in Prismo's time room and used a wish to threaten every timeline at once, is now sweet pea, round head, tiny horns, soft pastel green skin, like the universe hit compress on pure annihilation and saved it as a low-resolution file. He gurgles, he smiles, he clings to tree trunks and Mr. Pig. His voice, when he tries words, is gentle and a little wobbly, not the reality-scraping growl that used to freeze heroes in place. And yet, Here is the thing. Every so often, you hear it. A slip, a resonance. That old, cavernous Lich timbre leaking through Sweet Pea's mouth, like an echo from a dead cathedral drifting into a nursery. His aura flickers, the background darkens. For one heartbeat, he is not a child. He is an event. Then it's gone, and he is back to being a kid who worries about school and friendship, and whether he's in trouble. Symbolically, this is the universe doing something very specific with its most dangerous asset. It does not delete him. It doesn't wipe the disk. It recycles. It takes the concentrated desire for non-existence and folds it into a new existence, one with potential, one constrained by relationships and bedtime, and pig parents who make pies. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the defeat of the Lich is not a sword through the skull, but a kind of cosmic composting. Death's avatar becomes fertilizer for a different kind of life. We're going to sit with that for a second, because it raises a quiet, unnerving question. Is Sweet Pea really free? Or is the anti-life wish just napping behind his big round eyes? The show keeps that tension humming. When Sweet Pea is threatened, or when someone names what he used to be, the air bends. The old power remembers itself. You can feel the multiverse holding its breath, as if every timeline that has ever suffered under the Lich is watching this one child and whispering, "Please don't wake up." Think about that for a second. Heroes win, and yet the Lich is still here, just redistributed. He goes from end of all things to awkward school kid with a dark secret. That is not erasure, that is revision. And the next twist in this soft horror story is how Sweet Pea's very existence complicates the idea of defeating evil at all. Whether you can rewrite a cosmic law of annihilation into something harmless, or whether, given the right trigger, the universe's oldest enemy will simply remember what it was always meant to do. A monster's second childhood, Sweet Pea's life in the shadow of what he was. So now you have this paradox walking around in overalls, the apocalypse as a preschooler. The Lich, who once scraped his voice across reality and wished for extinction, is suddenly being told to use his inside voice and not track mud on the rug. And here is the thing. The show does not play that purely as a joke. It sits with it. It lets you feel how wrong and how right it is at the same time. Let's start in the little yellow house, far from the center of time, where tree trunks and Mr. Pig build a life that is aggressively, almost defiantly domestic. Snacks on tiny plates, bedtime stories about romance and polite adventure, chores that move according to the slow rules of ordinary time. Wash the dishes, sweep the floor, tuck the baby in. Sweet Pea grows up in that soft orbit, hugged more than scolded, his days shaped not by cosmic power, but by whether he finished his peas. And yet, every so often, the universe remembers what he used to be. You see it in those moments when his pupils vanish into that blank green glow, when his voice drops a register and comes out too calm, too old, like anti-life clearing its throat. In the Nightmare Princess's realm, when the fear visions close in, Sweet Pea does not just whimper. He declares, in that unfathomable tone, that he is the Lich, and the nightmare recoils. Simple, declarative. Then the vivid metaphor. It's like a dead star blinking on for a second in the middle of a sunny afternoon. Tree trunks and Mr. Pig react the way only Adventure Time parents can. They are terrified. They are also stubbornly loving. They choose to believe in the child in front of them, rather than the extinction event in his past, as if affection itself were a wish strong enough to overwrite a cosmic function. Think about that for a second. Two very small people trying to out-argue entropy with nap schedules and apple pie. Other characters are not so sure. Finn knows exactly what that aura feels like. He has seen timelines where the Lich wins. So when he looks at Sweet Pea, there is a flicker of suspicion, that muscle memory of fighting the end of all existence. Peppermint Butler, student of dark rules and forbidden desire, treats the kid almost like a sealed artifact, a quiet experiment in whether evil can be contained by manners and good influences. But Jake, in that specifically Adventure Time way, is more willing to just toss a ball, teach a game, and accept that today the universe's greatest threat wants to play tag. We're going to keep circling this tension: nature versus nurture, annihilation versus snack time. Is Sweet Pea a cured curse, or a countdown disguised as a child? The show never gives you a neat answer, and that uncertainty is the emotional stake. Because if he ever remembers fully, every timeline we've seen could unravel. And yet, right now, he mostly remembers how to nap. Pattern interrupt. Imagine telling a cosmic historian that the end of all things is currently grounded, sharing toys and being encouraged to use gentle hands. The multiverse's oldest enemy is on what amounts to a toddler timeout, his days measured not in apocalypses, but in how long he can go without needing a diaper change. Echoes across timelines. Why the Lich never fully goes away, and yet, even in timeout, he doesn't really go away. If you zoom out from the diaper and the gentle hands for a second, you start to notice something unsettling. The Lich is everywhere. Not in a jump scare way, in a slow geological way, like erosion. He keeps showing up across time, across realities, across wishes, as if the multiverse keeps accidentally writing the same villain into every draft. Let's start with the original. The Mushroom War Lich, born from nuclear fire and wild magic, is less a person and more a wound in reality, a walking pocket of pure anti-life. He terrorizes the early Land of Ooo, gets defeated by Billy, and then we find him later, frozen in amber beneath the Candy Kingdom. Not dead. Not healed, just paused. A doomsday caught mid-sentence, his skull locked in a golden fossil, waiting for time and someone's bad decision to thaw him out. Then he cheats the pause. He wears Billy like a suit, the Billy Lich smiling with that wrong-stretched sincerity, using a hero's reputation as camouflage. Think about that for a second. Entropy borrowing the face of hope. After that shell is broken, he's blasted into Prismo's realm, turned into a wish, and from that wish we get the Farm World Lich, a whole alternate universe's version of the same extinction event, grown out of the Ice Crown and a single badly phrased desire. Different timeline, same pattern. In Farm World, he rises from a skeleton in a cave, whispering to Farm World Finn, trying to steer yet another reality towards zero. And when that body is finally undone, when Finn uses the wish power to erase him, the echo still doesn't vanish. It curls back into the main timeline, where the Lich's essence is forced into a tiny body and becomes Sweet Pea. Here is the thing. That's already at least 5 incarnations. Mushroom War Lich, Amber-Trapped Lich, Billy Lich, Farm World Lich, Sweet Pea. Different shapes, different rules, same gravitational pull toward nothingness. So the question becomes almost inevitable. Is this one continuous being slipping between realities like mold through cracks? Or is he an archetype the universe keeps reinventing? A cosmic template for the end of all life that each timeline independently fills in. In this video, we're going to lean into that ambiguity, because Adventure Time never fully settles it. The Lich speaks with one voice, remembers across forms, and yet the Farm World Lich is literally generated by a wish, as if the center of time is forced to produce its own local apocalypse. It's both haunting and weirdly bureaucratic. Every reality files its paperwork, and somewhere in the fine print, there's a clause for annihilation. And that loops us back to the big cycles the show loves: death and rebirth, destruction and rebuilding, fear and courage, repeating in that specifically Adventure Time way. The Lich is the downward curve of the cycle, the part where everything cracks. But to really feel the weight of that, we're going to need to set him against his opposite. Characters who are messy, resilient, noisy life, stumbling forward even when the universe keeps trying to go quiet. Noise against nothing. Bubblegum, Marceline, and living in the Lich's shadow. So let's start with the noise, with the opposite of that green, patient silence. Because if the Lich is the universe holding its breath forever, Princess Bubblegum is the universe mainlining coffee and drafting a 500-year to-do list, just in case the sky falls again. Here is the thing. Bonnibel is not just quirky candy royalty, she is a child of apocalypse. She rises out of the literal goo of a world that almost stopped in the radioactive afterglow of the Mushroom War, and her response to that trauma is to build, and build, and build. Cities, golems, backup plans, secret bunkers under the Candy Kingdom, where the Lich's amber prison sits like a paused extinction event. Her science is not neutral curiosity. It's armor. Every new invention is a quiet wish that the rules of reality will stay under her control this time. You can feel it in the way she micromanages existence itself. She engineers citizens, orchestrates politics, surveils threats before they have names. It looks like overreach. It is overreach. But from her perspective, the Lich is not a mythic villain. He's a known variable in the equation of survival. He already almost ended her universe once. Think about that for a second. If you had the memory of the world's near-death baked into your DNA, how gentle would your governance really be? Marceline, meanwhile, carries the same catastrophe in a different register. She remembers the Mushroom War not as a history lesson, but as a childhood. Ash-choked skies, ruined malls, a dad who eats souls, and a kind human named Simon, slowly disintegrating under a magic crown. Time does not abstract any of that for her. Time just stretches it out. So when the Lich moves through Ooo, whispering extinction, it isn't cosmic horror in the abstract, it is déjà vu. It is the smell of burning glass coming back. Her answer is not blueprints, it's noise, music, screaming bass lines, messy relationships with Bubblegum, with her dad, with her own hunger. She is half demon, half vampire, full emotional feedback loop. She plays concerts on the bones of the old world, turning trauma into sound waves that insist again and again that existence is still happening. That desire still matters. The Lich wants a universe where nothing ever happens again. Marceline's entire life is a refusal of that rule. Together, their chaos becomes culture. Candy politics, band drama, ex-girlfriend arguments, small moral failures, and awkward reconciliations. None of it looks like grand power facing a primordial death god, but it is. Because every election PB rigs in the name of safety, every song Marceline writes about being left behind, adds one more layer of narrative over the Lich's blank script. A noisy, flawed, deeply alive resistance. And we're going to see that this matters far beyond their own timelines. Because even when Bubblegum's kingdoms crumble, even when Marceline finally gets to rest, the universe remembers the pattern they set. Build instead of surrender, sing instead of going quiet. Somewhere in the far future, long after their bones and candy molecules have joined the background radiation, the Lich will stir again at the center of time. And something or someone will answer him with that same inconvenient noise. The question is, what shape will that resistance take next? Distant futures, familiar skulls. The Lich beyond Finn and Jake. So when we say the Lich will stir again at the center of time, we're not just talking about Finn and Jake's era, looping one more heroic rematch. We're talking about a long, slow echo that keeps rolling forward through the multiverse into futures where no one remembers his name, but everyone still lives in the shadow of what he tried to do. The heroes change, the continents move, the sky cools, the pattern remains. Let's start in those far-off versions of Ooo we only glimpse in fragments. Ruined Candy Kingdom towers half melted into glass, a single horn from his skeletal crown embedded in a cliff like a fossilized lightning strike. A cracked piece of green armor worshipped as a relic by tiny, post-apocalypse creatures who have no idea that the blessed skull shard once whispered extinction into reality itself. No Lich in sight, just artifacts, like teeth the universe forgot to clean up. Here is the thing. Even when his body is gone, his outline is still stamped into existence. Legends about a green silence that almost erased the world. Nursery rhymes about the night the oceans tried to stand up and walk away. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the show hints that the idea of the Lich, total clean annihilation, survives as folklore, as half-remembered prophecy, as the story you tell your kids when you want them to understand that the universe has teeth. And because time in this universe is a messy, looping spiral around the center of time, we're going to assume that someone, somewhere, is always on the verge of rediscovering him. A wizard in a distant age decodes an old spellbook and accidentally rebuilds a fragment of his anti-life magic. A future scientist finds a contaminated shard of farm-world crown ice and runs, just a little, experiment. A wish, spoken in the wrong place at the wrong angle to reality, brushes against the same frequency that once answered the Lich. Think about that for a second. You don't even need the original monster if you can recompile his code. So people live with this mythic gravity pulling at the back of their minds. Not constantly, not as panic, more like weather. They plant gardens knowing a cosmic skull once tried to salt the soil of existence. They build cities with evacuation plans that no one really talks about, just in case reality decides to thin out at the edges again. They fall in love under skies that have already almost gone dark, and that quiet awareness that everything can end suddenly and completely makes the small moments feel sharper, almost tender. And then there is you, lying in bed, listening to a bedtime story about a skeleton who wanted the universe to go to sleep forever. Pattern interrupt. That's what every monster under the bed story really is. A tiny, safe rehearsal for facing something like the Lich. You practice looking at the dark, naming it, shrinking it down to a whisper. So when the real cosmic fears show up, the big annihilation worries, you already know the move. You breathe. You listen. You remember that even in the face of the green silence, someone, somewhere, always makes noise. Entropy with feelings. Emotional and existential layers of the Lich. And here is the thing. The noise the heroes make is not just swords clashing or spells firing. It's breathing. It's existing. Which raises the really uncomfortable question when you're lying there in the dark. Does the Lich, the avatar of endings, feel anything about any of this at all? On the surface, no. He is calm. He is composed. His voice doesn't waver, it just drips through reality like cold poison, as if every word has already been decided outside of time. He is not angry. He is not gloating. That is important. Anger would mean he cares. Gloating would mean he wants you to see him win. Instead, there is this strange, hollow serenity, the emotional temperature of a vacuum. And yet, he keeps returning to the same wish, in every timeline, in every configuration of power and rules. Extinction, silence, a universe with nothing left in it. So let's start from that obsession and flip it around. If you keep wishing for everything to end, over and over, maybe you are not just a villain. Maybe you are the universe's own exhaustion, given bones and green fire. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the Lich feels like the part of existence that has finally had enough of entropy hurting in slow motion. Enough of watching timelines fracture, heal, and fracture again. Imagine reality as a body that has been sick for eons. The Lich is the intrusive thought that whispers, "What if we just stopped?" Think about that for a second. What if annihilation is not rage, but relief? And then you have everyone else standing around this walking cancellation notice, projecting their private terrors onto his skull. Finn sees the fear of failing the people he loves. Jake sees the fear of losing the easy, warm rhythm of his life. Simon sees the fear that all his sacrifices, all his time under the crown, might still add up to nothing. To the Candy Kingdom, he is the nightmare of civilization ending again. Another mushroom war, but with no survivors this time. He is not just death, he is the thesis statement of meaninglessness concentrated into one skeletal silhouette at the center of time. We're going to notice something subtle here. The heroes never actually win, not in the way the Lich is trying to win. He gets frozen in amber beneath the Candy Kingdom, but that is not a cure, it is a pause button. He gets wished into a harmless baby, but that is not redemption, it is a transformation with an asterisk. Even when timelines reset, or Prismo nudges reality with a wish, the Lich's idea never goes away. The fear of endings just changes costumes, and this mirrors you, lying there with your own late-night cosmology. You never fully banish the thought that everything ends. You just negotiate with it, make compromises, find softer shapes for the same sharp idea. The show is honest about that. Every defeat of the Lich is a truce, not a triumph. In this video's final movements, we'll gently tie all of this together. How the Lich's exhaustion, Prismo's constrained power, and the hero's noisy, fragile hope are three different ways of facing the same dark. One wants to erase it, one wants to manage it, one wants to walk through it holding someone else's hand. Stay with me, because next we're going to line those approaches up, side by side, and see what the multiverse is really afraid of. Between power and helplessness, Prismo the Lich, and cosmic vulnerability. So let's start by actually doing that lineup the show keeps hinting at. On one side of the time room couch, you have Prismo, a two-dimensional wishmaster at the center of time, remote in hand, able to rewrite almost any timeline with a lazy sentence. On the other side, in that same glow of infinite screens, you have the Lich, a walking extinction event who can end almost any life with a gesture. Two embodiments of cosmic power. Two beings who, here is the thing, are both quietly trapped. Prismo can grant almost any wish. The Lich can almost end the universe, but neither of them chose the rules that define them. Prismo didn't decide to be the dream of an old man, suspended in a magical sleep somewhere in a mundane corner of reality. The Lich didn't decide to be born from the Mushroom War, from nuclear fire braided together with wild magic and human fear. They are consequences before they are characters. Side effects the multiverse forgot to clean up. Think about that for a second. Prismo's whole existence depends on a single sleeping body that he can't safely wake. The Lich's whole relevance depends on the conditions that created him. War, sorcery, terror, the constant human talent for pushing reality toward the edge. If the old man wakes up, Prismo vanishes. If the universe ever truly healed, the Lich would have nothing left to do. One is existentially fragile. The other is thematically obsolete. Different flavors of the same helplessness, and they are both lonely. Prismo's time room looks like a cosmic sleepover that never ends, but the party only happens when someone drops in to make a wish. Most of the time, it's just him, the screens, and the hum of eternity. The Lich, meanwhile, moves through existence like a vacuum. He doesn't have minions, he has victims. He doesn't have friends, he has puppets. Like when he wears Billy's body like a heroic costume. Connection for him is always devouring, always domination. So we're going to sit with that tension the show builds, between omnipotence and helplessness, between being a person and being a force. Prismo jokes, flirts, watches movies, gets genuinely attached to Finn and Jake. He has desire, but almost no control over his own conditions. The Lich has nearly absolute control over any room he walks into, but no desire beyond erasure. He is not conflicted. He is not tempted. He is just bound to an annihilation script older than Ooo itself. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the multiverse keeps putting them on opposite sides of the same equation. Prismo manages the damage. The Lich is the damage. Prismo rearranges timelines. the Lich tries to end the need for timelines altogether. And under all the glowing colors and jokes about pickles and skeletons, there's this very quiet question pulsing. What does it mean that beings like this exist at all? Is the real story whether the heroes win, or whether reality can live with the kinds of power it keeps accidentally dreaming into existence? Hold on to that, because next we're going to follow the Lich out of the time room and into his origins. And the answers hiding there are much stranger than simple good versus evil. Are you real if you can end the world? Ontology at 3 a.m. So when we follow the Lich out of the time room, that quiet question about reality gets louder. Because here is the thing, if a being can lean forward, make a wish and erase an entire universe from the multiverse, does it actually matter whether that being is real, in the normal waking up and making coffee sense? Let's start with Prismo himself. He is literally a dream, projected out of a sleeping old man tucked away in some mundane corner of existence. If the dreamer wakes, the time room at the center of time blinks out, the screens go dark, and this two-dimensional wishmaster with cosmic power just stops. And yet, in that specifically Adventure Time way, the wishes he grants stay real. Farm world doesn't evaporate when Prismo dies. The Lich that grows out of the Ice Crown's wish for the extinction of all life in that timeline keeps crawling toward his quiet apocalypse. So you get this strange equation: dream plus desire equals permanent reality. A sleepy old man's brainwave ripples out and creates a Lich variant who can end worlds. Think about that for a second. If your origin is just a dream, but your handprints are on the bones of a dead universe, are you less real than the bones? Adventure Time keeps blurring that line. We watch Finn visit the farm world universe like it's a channel on Prismo's wall of screens, a late-night rerun you can flip to, and yet people are born there, suffer there, love there, die there. The Lich raises his skeletal arm in that frozen wasteland, and his voice scrapes through reality exactly as hard as the main Lich does in Ooo. The show quietly suggests that impact, not origin, is the rule that defines existence. If you can change the timeline, then you are part of the timeline. And this loops back to you, lying there in the dark. Your late-night worries, the thoughts that bloom at 3 a.m. when the room is quiet and the ceiling feels like an infinite screen, are just in your head. They're dreams, or half-dreams, or little mental liches pacing around your skull. But they can still end worlds. Not the whole multiverse, maybe, but your world. They can erase a future you might have walked into, just by convincing you it was impossible. In that sense, the Lich is like a fear. A single thought that, if you let it, can colonize every possible timeline of your choices until all that's left is silence. And Prismo is like the part of you that can step back, sit on the metaphorical beanbag at the center of time, and say, okay, what if we wish for something else instead? Not denial, rewrite. The same mind that generates the apocalypse scenario can also quietly edit it, or soften it, or turn it into a joke you tell yourself in the morning. Here is the pattern interrupt. You do not actually have to solve ontology before you fall asleep. You don't have to decide whether your thoughts are real enough or whether Prismo's dream counts as a person under cosmic labor law. You can just let these ideas drift past like channels on his wall of timelines. Interesting, a little eerie, but distant. If one catches, that's fine. If they all blur into static, that's fine too. We're going to follow the Lich's origins next, back through mushroom fire and ancient magic, but for now you can let the question of what is real loosen its grip. Reality will still be there in the morning. The multiverse is patient. Why the Lich never truly wins: cycles, stories, and small acts of defiance. So if the multiverse is patient, the Lich is the opposite. He is impatience given bones, a desire for endings that keeps throwing itself against the soft, stubborn fabric of reality. And here is the thing. For someone who wants absolute silence, he spends a lot of time almost winning. Let's start with his near victories, because they're like pulses in the same dark heartbeat. He's born in the flash of the Mushroom War, that fusion of nuclear fire and wild magic, where human weapons tear a hole and something ancient steps through. He rises, is shattered, and ends up entombed in amber beneath the Candy Kingdom, an apocalypse pressed into a museum display. Later, he slips into Billy, Oo's greatest hero, wearing him like a decaying trophy, using Billy's trust to almost open the time portal. In Farmworld, he rides a wish through the Ice Crown, condensing into a skeleton that freezes an entire timeline in one whispered command. He stands before Prismo and says it clearly. He wishes for the extinction of all life. And even when that wish collapses into paradox and reconfiguration, the Lich still manages to pour himself into a baby who should have been his final vessel, and becomes Sweet Pea instead. From a distance, it looks like a series of failures. Up close, it's something stranger. The universe of Adventure Time is built on cycles. Endings feed beginnings. Death composts into new existence. Every time the Lich reaches for a final clean erasure, time answers with a messy, branching workaround. Amber doesn't just trap him. It preserves the possibility of someone finding him and choosing differently. His universe-ending wish doesn't erase reality. It spawns a farm world where other choices are made. Even his transformation into Sweet Pea is a cycle in miniature, pure entropy forced to live as a child, to grow instead of erase. We're going to sit with the small acts that keep ruining his grand design. A hero makes a sandwich wish instead of a cosmic one, nudging a timeline just far enough off course that the Lich's perfect extinction never quite lands where it should. Think about that for a second. The fate of all existence derailed by snack priorities. A kid, Finn, refuses to give up even when his arm is gone, when his idol is possessed, when the rules of time themselves feel rigged. A child's kindness to Sweet Pea, choosing to see a friend instead of a prophecy, quietly overwrites the script the Lich thought was inevitable. These are not big, showy miracles. They're friction. Resistance. Tiny grains of narrative sand in the gears of cosmic annihilation. And then there are the stories. As long as people in Ooo tell tales about the Lich and the heroes who faced him, he never becomes the blank silence he craves. He is not a final void. He is a character in an ongoing narrative, pulled back into the flow of time every time someone remembers, or dreams, or whispers about the green skull in the dark. Stories are wishes spoken sideways. They say, "This happened," and then someone answered. In this video, we've been circling that idea from different angles, and we're going to bring it home soon. We'll drift back to that opening image, the quiet universe on the brink, the Lich reaching out one more time, and look at why the multiverse always leans away at the last second. Not loudly, not with fireworks, just with enough resistance that the brink never quite becomes the end. The soft edge of apocalypse, returning to the Lich at the end of all things. So let's go back there now, back to the edge, back to the last, thin breath of the universe. The stars are gone, the colors have drained away, and reality feels like paper that's been erased too many times. The Lich is standing where existence runs out, framed by that soft, impossible horizon of nothing. He doesn't move. He doesn't need to. Behind that stillness, every timeline we've talked about is hanging, like dust motes in dead light. Here is the thing. When you look at him now, you're not just seeing a skeleton in a robe. You're seeing Farmworld, born from a single wish in the center of time. You're seeing the crown flash, the green comet, the Mushroom War blooming like a horrible flower. You're seeing Billy's proud fist, and then Billy's hollow eyes when the Lich wore him like armor. All of that is in the way his empty sockets face the dark. All of that is in the silence. He has almost made it here before, again and again. In that specifically Adventure Time way, reality keeps letting him get right up to the brink. He stood under the Candy Kingdom, frozen in amber, Apocalypse paused like a show on Prismo's TV. He poured through the multiverse as a whisper in Sweet Pea's dreams. He rode along in wishes, in crowns, in tiny choices made by people who just wanted their friend back. Think about that for a second. A cosmic force of annihilation, repeatedly detoured by a boy with a sword, a dog who likes sandwiches, and a pink scientist who loves her people. He is not stopped by equal power. He is not even really defeated. He is just rerouted, turned into a baby, trapped in a gemstone, nudged sideways by the exact combination of desire, friendship, and bad wording that Prismo has to honor. Every time, the rules of wishing and the messiness of hearts bend the timeline away from this exact quiet cliff where he's standing now. And yet, even here, the universe can't quite commit to being over. Because if Prismo is the dream of an old man in some forgotten room, who is to say there isn't another dreamer still asleep somewhere, still generating a backup plan? Maybe, just off screen, there's a time room flickering, a jar of pickles, a cosmic TV still playing reruns. Maybe Sweet Pea is growing up in some side reality, holding a tiny stubborn pocket of no, not yet inside his chest. So this moment at the end isn't clean. It's not a hard cutoff. It's part of a cycle, another loop in a multiverse that keeps inventing excuses to continue. Endings are real. Universes do wind down. But interruptions are real too. Detours, misphrased wishes, children who refuse to become what destiny ordered. And we're going to follow that impulse, that quiet refusal to let everything go dark at once, as we move into the last stretch of this video and ask what it really means for a being like the Lich to lose, softly. The Lich as a mirror, what our fear of him says about us. For a second, just sit with that. A being whose entire desire is for everything to stop, slowly losing to interruptions. Here is the thing about the Lich. He isn't just a villain in a funny hat. He is what it feels like, late at night, when your brain whispers that one day you, and everyone you love, and every memory you're hoarding will be gone, and in the cosmic scale of the multiverse, it might not matter at all. That's why he resonates. The Lich is entropy with a skull face, but he's also that quiet suspicion that existence is a joke with no punchline. His wish for extinction is the nightmare version of a very human thought. If the universe forgets us, were we ever real? Think about that for a second. The show takes that fear, walks it right up to the center of time, and then, in that specifically Adventure Time way, answers it without ever pretending it can fix death. Because the answer isn't, don't worry, you live forever. The answer is, you live now. Finn does not fight the Lich because he has a guarantee that his timeline will be safe for all eternity. He fights him with a broken sword, a weird hat, and the knowledge that tomorrow might still be worse. Jake makes dumb jokes, standing a few feet from cosmic annihilation. Bubblegum runs experiments on the residue of the Lich's power, knowing exactly how fragile her candy kingdom is. They all understand the rules of this universe. No wish can erase entropy forever, and yet they keep wishing, not cosmic wishes most of the time. Little ones. For one more hug. For one more bad pun. For one more movie night in a treehouse that has already burned down in a dozen alternate timelines. Marceline writes songs about a world the Mushroom War already ended. Prismo lounges in his bachelor pad at the center of time, trapped and glowing, still offering people exactly what they ask for, still choosing friendship in a reality where the Lich is always waiting just off screen. So the Lich becomes a mirror. When you see him, you're also seeing your own fear that nothing you do really matters, that oblivion is the default setting. But when you see Finn standing there anyway, or Billy pretending he won, or Farm World Finn accidentally creating a new Lich with a wish gone wrong, you're seeing another reflection, the part of you that shows up, again and again, even when the ending is already written in cosmic ink. Let's start from where you are right now. lying there with your eyes maybe a little heavier, your thoughts drifting in and out like weak radio signals across a dark universe. If your mind wanders, that's fine. The Lich will still be there in his amber, in his comets, in his quiet speeches about the end. The heroes will still be there too, making breakfast, making mistakes, making meaning out of a temporary world. And as you drift, we're going to follow them one step further into the soft, strange question of what it actually means for a creature of pure ending to leave anything behind at all. A gentle recap, tracing every lifetime of the Lich one last time. So let's start there, in that question. What does a creature of pure ending actually leave behind? As you lie here, eyes heavy, we're going to walk back through his whole existence one more time, but slower now, like rewinding a tape until the colors blur and the sound turns into a low, safe hum. Here is the thing. The Lich is not just a skeleton in a robe. He begins as a wound in reality, a side effect of the Mushroom War, where nuclear fire and wild magic shook the multiverse so hard that human self-destruction grew teeth. Out of that blast comes this living absence, this green-flamed shadow that remembers what humans did to their own world and decides that the only merciful sequel is no sequel at all. No more life, no more noise, just silence, stretched to the end of time. We watched that silence get paused, literally, in amber beneath the Candy Kingdom, the apocalypse, bottled like a museum exhibit. Finn and Jake thought they were living in the aftermath of the end of the world, but really, they were living next door to it, sleeping over the fossilized outline of extinction itself. Then the amber cracks, and the story changes shape. The Lich flows into Billy, the great hero of Ooo, turning a symbol of hope into a puppet of negation. Think about that for a second. The embodiment of death wearing the face everyone trusts most. From there, the timelines start to fray. In this video, we traced how his wish with Prismo, the extinction of all life, ripples outward. One sentence, clear and sharp, aimed at the center of time. Prismo grants it because those are the rules, and suddenly we're in Farm World, an alternate reality where the crown and that wish knit a new version of the Lich out of ice, fear, and human desperation. Different universe, same desire. You can branch the timeline, but you can't quite shake that green skull. And yet, every time, noisy, imperfect life pushes back. Finn's mistakes, Jake's doubts, Prismo's constrained kindness. Cosmic beings who cannot rewrite their own conditions still keep nudging reality away from total erasure. The Lich stands for entropy and silence. They stand for breakfast, friendship, and badly thought-out hero speeches. It is a lopsided war, but somehow, life keeps winning on technicalities. Until finally, we end up with Sweet Pea, the same soul rewritten as a gentle child who likes playing and being held, an avatar of annihilation, now drawing with crayons. Can evil be overwritten, or is it just sleeping under the surface? The show never answers cleanly in that specifically Adventure Time way. Endings don't stay ended. Death becomes rebirth. Reality blurs into dreams. Wishes fracture into new universes. And even the Lich's perfect silence gets downgraded into a quiet night where you can close your eyes knowing that, for now, the end of all things has been tucked into bed and told a nicer story. If you drift off before we reach the last pieces, that's all right. The timelines will still be there, looping softly without you. From skull to story, why the Lich is weirdly comforting. And here is the thing about tucking the end of all things into bed. Once you've watched the Lich get folded into a baby, or trapped in amber, or reduced to a politely simmering green puddle at the bottom of a multiverse accident, the fear changes shape. It stops being this foggy, formless dread and becomes a character, a voice, a skull you recognize. Let's start with that. Having a clear embodiment of annihilation, a literal skeleton in a robe who announces his desire for the extinction of all life, is weirdly comforting. Not because he's safe, He isn't. But because the show takes this abstract terror, entropy, death, the collapse of every timeline, and gives it a face you can look at without your brain short-circuiting, you can point and say, that is the end. Over there. Think about that for a second. It's easier to hold your fear when it has an outline. So we watch Finn and Jake stand in front of him, again and again. In the Candy Kingdom, with the Lich frozen under the tree like a paused apocalypse, in the center of time, when his wish fractures reality and Farmworld spins off as a whole new universe just to contain one sentence. In the Citadel, where he's finally reduced to a helpless infant, and every time you and I get a free rehearsal, we're going to practice courage by proxy. You're not facing the embodiment of anti-life magic tomorrow, but you are facing deadlines, breakups, hospital waiting rooms, those quiet 3 a.m. spirals where your own existence feels very small. The Lich is the exaggerated version of all of that. If Finn can walk toward that skull, maybe you can answer one difficult email. The show never lies to you about endings. It doesn't pretend that if you wish hard enough, nobody dies, no universe cools, no timeline ever closes. In that specifically Adventure Time way, it keeps the cosmic rules intact. Time moves, power fades, existence is finite. And then it says very gently that love and friendship and curiosity are still worth it anyway. You see it when Jake makes sandwiches in Prismo's time room while the multiverse rearranges itself. You see it when Simon keeps searching for Betty through ruined realities. The end is there, but so is the picnic. So maybe, as you drift, you can let the image of the Lich soften. Not a jump scare in the dark, but a distant, inevitable night sky. Cold, vast, real. The campfire of your life burns warmer precisely because that darkness exists around it. His wish for silence becomes background radiation, and your tiny conversations, your tiny choices, glow brighter against it. Thank you for sitting with all of this, for letting a cartoon skeleton and a cosmic wish and the edges of the universe move through your mind while you rest. We've walked through heavy territory, but we've done it softly, under a shared blanket of time. And as we ease into the outro, you can let the lore fade into something simpler. Just breathing, just being here in this quiet timeline where the Lich can wait until morning. If you're still awake, a soft invitation to stay in this universe. If you're still here with me, actually hearing these words instead of dreaming past them, that already tells us something gentle about your timeline. Some people have drifted away by now, carried off by the Lich's echo fading into ordinary sleep. But you are here, in this quiet little corner of reality, letting the last waves of the story roll through your mind. Here is the thing. Both of those outcomes are perfect. The people who are asleep are doing exactly what this universe of words was built to help with. And you, still awake, are just lingering at the edge of the time room, watching the last screens dim. Think about that for a second. You've followed a cosmic skeleton through extinction wishes and multiverse detours, and somehow it has all led to this very soft, very human moment. If your eyes are still open, or half open, this is where we're going to fold in the quiet version of a call to action. No alarms, no urgency, just an invitation. If you want more softly explained lore, more late-night walks through the center of time, you can like this video, or subscribe, or save it for another night when sleep feels far away. You can do it now, or you can just remember that this channel exists the next time your brain wants to lie awake and think about the Lich, or Prismo, or the Ice King slowly unraveling across timelines. Maybe you'd like to fall asleep to Prismo's rules again, or drift with the cosmic owl through prophetic dreams, or sit with Simon at the edge of his own fractured existence. Maybe you want to hear how a wish at the end of the universe spills backwards into every earlier moment. All of that can live here, quietly, patiently. If you feel like leaving a comment, let it be low pressure. almost like a message in a bottle you toss into a very calm sea. You could whisper which Lich moment stayed with you the most: the amber prison under the Candy Kingdom, the farm world wish that accidentally births him again, or that still, terrible way he asks for extinction like someone asking for the lights to be turned off. Or you could tell me which character's story you'd like to drift off to next: Prismo watching every timeline on his infinite screens, the Ice King crown humming with broken desire, the Cosmic Owl quietly visiting people at their most vulnerable. And if you don't want to say anything, that's real too. There is no rush here. No algorithmic panic. This can just be a small, dimly lit room at the edge of the multiverse, where heavy stories are told gently, and where you are never required to be louder than a whisper. So we slow down even more now. The sentences stretch, the spaces between them widen. The energy that carried us through apocalypses and wishes, and the edges of existence, is allowed to exhale. In this video, even the outro is part of the lullaby. You can stay and breathe, and let the universe shrink back down to the size of your chest, rising and falling. The Lich and all his timelines can wait. Right now, the only power that matters is your permission to rest, drifting away from the green flame. A final quiet goodbye to the Lich. So let's stay with that for a moment. Your chest rising and falling, while the universe we just unfolded quietly folds itself back up. The Lich is still out there in the lore, in that green corrosive corner of the multiverse. But here is the thing. We don't have to stand next to him anymore. We can watch from very far away, like you're looking at a distant star that already burned out. Let's start by changing the image. Not the Lich screaming extinction into the center of time. Not the nuclear birth in the Mushroom War. Just a flame. That eerie green fire that once poured through his eye sockets and fingers, that once tried to erase existence, now sitting in front of you like a candle at the end of a very long night. No jump scare. No final spell. Just a small, steady light that has been awake for far too long. And then, in that specifically Adventure Time way, the apocalypse becomes domestic. The Lich's power, the raw desire for silence and nothingness, is reduced to a wick and a glow. You can imagine leaning forward, the way you might do on a birthday, and giving it the gentlest breath. Not a battle, not a wish, just an exhale. The green flame bends, flickers, and goes out. No sound. No last curse, only the soft after-image on the inside of your eyelids. Because his story is still just that, a story. We're going to remember that the Lich does not own your mind, or your night, no matter how many timelines he has infected. You can pick him up like a book from a shelf. Farm World, Mushroom War, Billy's Fall, all of it, and you can put him back whenever you decide you're done. Think about that for a second. A being who wants to end all reality, and you can close him with your hand. Right now, he is contained. Not in amber beneath the Candy Kingdom. Not in a cosmic wish loophole. In memory. In fiction. In this video, he exists as vibrations in the air or pixels on a screen, while you exist as warmth in a blanket, as weight on a mattress, as breath in a dark room. He is theoretical. You are real. He is cold intent. You are a nervous system slowly unclenching. If there's any tension left in your shoulders, you can let it drain away with the last traces of green. Let the details blur. The exact rules of his magic, the precise timeline of every defeat and return. They can all smear into a soft, abstract impression. Skull, fire, silence, gone. You don't have to hold the continuity Bible of the universe in your head to fall asleep. And if you ever want to come back, you can. The Lich will wait where all persistent villains wait. In reruns, in wikis, in the background radiation of fandom. There's no timer, no cosmic owl prophecy demanding you finish the lore tonight. You can revisit any wish, any timeline, any version of his face when you feel like it, or never again, and reality will be fine. So, as we drift toward the end of this story, let the multiverse dim with that candle. Let Ooo go quiet. Let the center of time spin without you watching every frame. It is completely okay to sleep now. The universe and its skull-faced end can wait until morning. Lights out in Ooo. Gentle sign-off from the end of the world, and as it waits, you can too. Here is the thing. Whether you made it all the way here with eyes wide open, tracking every timeline and every wish, or you only heard the first few sentences before your brain quietly bailed and went to dream about something completely unrelated, thank you for spending this time in Ooo with us. You showed up. You let this strange little corner of the universe hum in the background of your night. That counts. We're going to leave you gently, the way Prismo might fade a channel out instead of cutting it hard. Somewhere, the Lich is still frozen in amber beneath the Candy Kingdom. Still reaching, still failing. Somewhere else, he's a green comet hanging over Farmworld. Still falling, still not quite landing. Think about that for a second. Even the embodiment of the end of existence has to wait his turn in line. You, on the other hand, have permission to clock out immediately. If your eyes are still open and your brain is doing that restless scroll through reality, remember there are other paths waiting. More Prismo, more wishes, more timelines branching off like glowing veins through the multiverse. In this video, we only walked along one edge of the Lich's shadow. There are more corners of Ooo to wander through, more cosmic beings at the center of time, more rules and loopholes and quiet, strange friendships to unravel. They'll be here tomorrow, next week, whenever you have the desire to press play again. Let's start with something very small. One breath, in, out. No magic, no power, just biology doing its job. Sleep is its own daily wish, granted without a cosmic bureaucracy, without a monkey's paw, without the Lich whispering for everything to end. You lie down, you close your eyes, and reality soft resets in a way that is gentle and local and entirely yours. It is not extinction. It is not oblivion. It is a safe little nightly reboot where your personal timeline gets to blur at the edges and rest. The universe will keep running background processes while you're gone. Ooo will keep existing whether or not you personally supervise it. Prismo doesn't need you to monitor every screen in the time room, and the Lich does not get stronger just because you looked away. You can let the power down. You can let the plot go. So as the imagined audio fades, you can picture the time room's TV turning down, frame rate slowing, color draining to a warm, low glow. The multiverse tucks itself in. The end of the world rolls over and goes quiet for the night. Sleep easy at the end of the world, and if you wake up and feel like visiting again, we'll be right here, waiting at the center of time with another story. Good night, out there.